Tallahassee. Usually issues in this situation, you notice all the ground it covers: northern Okaloosa, northern Walton, much of Holmes County, much of Geneva County, southern portions of Coffee and Dale County, and over into the western portions of Houston County. It's for this leading edge of the line that will continue to move its way eastward. If you're over here in Dothan, Graceville, places like that, you're probably still about 45 minutes or so from us seeing any sort of weather from this. So probably getting the alerts. You're probably seeing that we have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Dothan. The leading edge of that line of storms is still all the way back here over in the southeastern corner of Covington County, moving over into the western portions of Coffee County. It's still not even over into the western portions of Geneva County just yet. So quick update there with that severe thunderstorm warning that got issued for a pretty good portion of our region. Going to jump back into this debris tracker, and again, some good news, not seeing any indications that we have a tornado on the ground about to move into Brundage. However, we do have that area of rotation that is moving its way now over Brundage right now. Again, not looking as well defined right now as what we saw when this tornado warning first got issued. If there was going to be a tornado on the ground, it would be now to the southeast of Brundage, just crossed over Highway 93, and as this continues to move off toward the east, it should stay generally right along into the south of State Highway 10 as you start getting over into Richland in the eastern portions of Pike County, and then eventually this carries over into the western parts of Barbour County as well. And again, we're going to have to also watch this area of the line as well, right around, that is State Highway 130, and then moving up, I believe this is Highway 29 that runs through Banks and then goes on up into Union Springs up in Bullock County. That will also need to be watched pretty carefully for an area of spin that could wind up leading to a tornado warning a bit farther downstream. That tornado warning continues until 3:45 for Pike and over into Barbour County. There's a little bit of a wider view. There's your area of rotation that has now moved to the southeast of Banks. Richland, over in the eastern portions of Pike County, you're the next in line for this rotation to move its way overhead. And then this starts to move over into the western portions of Barbour County. Again, places like Clio, places like Louisville, you're going to be the next ones in line to see this area of rotation move its way overhead. Fortunately, still a radar indicated area of rotation. There's another look at your debris tracker. Again, your area of rotation is just to the southeast of Brundage, and there's nothing out here in the debris tracker that would suggest that we have a tornado on the ground. That's definitely some good news. Hopefully something that continues to remain the case, but still an area of rotation that we are tracking as this continues to make its way through the eastern portions of Pike County. This is Highway 10, State Highway 10, that runs out of Brundage over into Richland. For now, this area of rotation is just to the south of Highway 10, and will continue to move its way eastward and toward the Pike and the Barbour County line over the next several minutes. I'm going to zoom out once again and just continue to give you that first alert. Northwestern portions of Barbour County, we're continuing to watch that part of the line of thunderstorms. No very well-defined area of rotation, but you notice that little S shape that we have here south of Josie, just to the northeast of Buckhorn. Some pretty strong winds there. Currently no tornado threat, but with some of those bright greens starting to show up between Buckhorn and Josie over here in the northeast corner of Pike County. If you can get that to tighten up a little bit more, you'd be looking at a potential tornado warning there. We'll sample some of the winds. These are a little bit off the ground, around 50, 40, 50, maybe as high as 60 miles per hour. And again, this is a little bit off the ground, but definitely going to have some gusty winds moving through the northeastern portions of Pike County as that area of stronger winds continues to blow through the region. We'll get that cleared out and drop you back down into the southern portions of Pike County, where we have that tornado warning in effect. Let's see. All right, so here's your area of rotation. Now moving out of Brundage, it's to the south of Highway 10, State Highway 10, running out of Brundage over toward Richland. This area of rotation looks a lot weaker now than what we saw when we first hopped on the air to start covering this, and hopefully a weakening trend is something that continues. This is along the leading edge of a line of thunderstorms that's moving its way eastward across the region, and as it normally happens, we get this line moving through the northern portions of the region before anything else. Going to do a quick reset right quick while things look pretty good as far as that goes. Not worried about any sort of threat for a immediate threat for tornadoes. There's a look at your line of thunderstorms stretching from the far southwestern portions of Okaloosa County, northern parts of Okaloosa County, about to move completely out of Covington County, Crenshaw County, by the way. Anybody watching us over in Crenshaw County, your severe weather threat is over for the day. These storms now starting to move through Coffee County, about to move into Enterprise. Be ready to see some gusty winds here over the next several minutes and some heavy rain over in Enterprise. No tornado threat, but we'll continue to keep a watch on that line as it gets closer to your area. The only problem spot is up here in the far northern portions of our region, about to move out of Pike County and into the southwestern portions of Barbour County. That's where we have an area of the line that has developed a region of rotation. It's now moved out of Brundage. Anybody living in Brundage, the all clear for you, you are now no longer included within that tornado warning as that area of rotation has moved much, much farther off toward your east. However, in Richland, in Clio, in Louisville, over in Blue Springs, western and southwestern portions of Barbour County, this tornado warning continues until 3:45 in the morning. This is the only tornado warning that we're looking at right now across the region. There are some other areas that are being watched pretty closely that pretty much cover the rest of Barbour County, with the lone exception being Eufaula. You see that new severe thunderstorm warning polygon that's in effect, and there's some areas within the northern portions of this line that has shown some areas of rotation that will likely need to be watched as we continue to progress through time, where we may see another tornado warning get issued. A couple of areas of rotation now that we're keeping an eye on within that tornado warning polygon. We have the original area of rotation that produced our tornado warning. That one moved just to the south of Brundage. Now up here around Richland, we're starting to get some of those colors beginning to brighten on our storm relative velocity. If those colors continue to brighten and we get a little bit more of a tightening of that rotation, that area will also need to be watched for a potential tornado. Right now, the main area of rotation that produced the tornado warning is to the south of Richland, to the south of State Highway 10, south of Richland. However, anybody living actually in Richland, you're likely seeing some very, very gusty winds right now. You see some of those bright greens that are popping up there over Richland. I'll do a quick sampling of those winds, and again, keep in mind a lot of this is a pretty good ways up above the ground and generally around 30 to 45 mile per hour winds. That could still be pretty breezy down to the surface, but overall not really anything that's overly concerning. Ryan, I do want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on the chats with Tallahassee and places like that, just to make sure we don't miss anything that's farther off toward the south while we're watching this tornado warning over in Pike and Barbour County. I'm trying to do that as well, but on my phone I'm only able to keep up with one of them. Ryan, let's toss things over to you. Kind of walk us through some of the things that you've been looking at.
Yeah, so I've been keeping a little bit more like you have, resetting, keeping a general look at some of these storms as well, just to make sure that there are no other areas of rotation that we're missing as we are watching. But yeah, these notches seem to really are keeping our attention due to their structure, still holding on to some of those notches as we make our way towards Clio, Louisville as well. We're going to continue watching the strength of these winds. One of our producers, Sean Sporman, actually messaged me. He lives in Brundage, and he was actually able to let me know that power outages are starting to take place through parts of Brundage, and that could already be the case for some areas besides Brundage throughout Pike County as well. So we're going to be watching this very closely as this makes its way into Barbour County as well. It just goes to show that I think what we have here is some of these storms really tapping into more of the low-level jet, those upper-level winds as well, to allow for these pockets of rotation. But luckily, as you were mentioning before, I'll pull it up here as well and take it back a few minutes. I haven't been seeing anything that would indicate radar confirmed or radar confirmation on these spins being a tornado on the ground. So that is some good news, but we'll be watching these notches very closely. And that's what you get with these systems a lot of the time too. You got to watch these linear systems very closely, because when you get notches, you can have brief spin ups that can drop to the ground in short amount of time and then lift back up. We've seen that plenty of times. Zach, you and I saw that together March of last year with that tornado that touched down inside the Ross Clark Circle area and did damage to Dothan Prep. So yeah, we'll be watching that very closely. And Zach, while you're keeping an eye on these storms heading into Barbour County, I'll be watching out the rest of the line to make sure there's no other pockets of rotation we're missing out on.
Yeah, Ryan, I think that's a good point. You know, we're gonna keep our eye on rotation more than anything else as this line of storms moves through. But even with those areas that have that rotation, even if we're not necessarily dealing with the immediate threat of a tornado, you see how bright some of these colors are. This is now crossing over out of Pike County and into the northwestern portions of Barbour County. Even though we may not necessarily be dealing with an immediate threat for a tornado with this, look at how bright some of these colors are. The brighter those colors are, the stronger those winds are. And again, granted, a lot of this stuff is aloft, but it doesn't take much, especially in this kind of setup, to get some of these winds that are aloft and get them down to the ground. And once that happens, you see that's where you get the wind damage. That's where you get the strong gusty winds from. So heads up, over here in the northwestern portions of Barbour County, you're not necessarily included within that tornado warning. That now entirely covers the southern portions of Barbour County. Anybody living back over in Pike County, you are no longer included in any part of this tornado warning. Continuing to watch that area of rotation as it crosses over into Barbour County. I think this is the leftover part of it here in between Brundage and Clio, just about to move over the Pike County line and over into Barbour County. The place that really sticks out to me a little bit more is just off toward the north of this tornado warning polygon. You see these very, very bright colors that are showing up that are now starting to move into the northwestern portions of Barbour County. In addition to the tornado threat, you have to watch out for some of these big areas of bright colors. That can be an indication of some strong winds that are moving through. Right now, around 40 to 50 mile per hour winds in all of these areas where you see those bright greens and bright blues. It's moving through the northwestern portions of Barbour County. Around 40 to 50 miles per hour right now, these are aloft, but again, along that leading edge of these storms, it doesn't take much to get these winds that are around 50 or 60 miles per hour aloft and bring them down to the surface. Then you're dealing with straight line wind damage, you're dealing with power outages and things like that. So the rotation and the tornado risk is kind of going to be the thing that we keep our eye the closest on, but we also have to keep in mind that within these areas of potential rotation, especially as some of these portions of the line start to bow out on the southern portions of those areas of rotation, that can cause some wind damage and some power outages in several locations. So that's also something that we'll have to keep an eye on in addition to the tornado threat. Right now, still just have the one tornado warning, and to be honest with you, it's a little bit more difficult to find any real areas of rotation that could be on the verge of producing a tornado, which is definitely some great news. It does not look like that area of rotation produced a tornado back when it was over in Pike County as it crossed over Highway 231, and what was that other roadway farther back off toward the west? Highway 167, just to the south of Mossy Grove. That's where that area of rotation really looked the best, but we never saw any sort of indications that we had a tornado on the ground. That is some good news. Fortunately, as this has continued to move eastward over into Barbour County, we're continuing to see that area of rotation become less and less organized. So right now it appears like that tornado threat's starting to get a bit lower. However, if you're still over here in the western and southern portions of Barbour County, Clio, up toward Louisville, over into Tyler Crossroads, anybody that's living in those areas, we still need you in that tornado safe place because that area of rotation spun up pretty quickly out over Pike County, and there's all the reason in the world to believe that that could happen again along this leading edge of the line. I'll actually back this up and show you how quickly that area of rotation got going. We'll start you out here. It's still over in Crenshaw County at this point. This was just under an hour ago. This is what it looked like when it was over in Crenshaw County, and then as it moved eastward over into the central portions of Pike County, you can see how that area of rotation really started to spin up. It looked very, very organized there. That was right before the tornado warning got issued, and then as it continued to move its way off toward the east, you can see it becomes gradually less and less apparent of where that rotation is, and then where we are right now. And doesn't really look like there's a whole lot going on here out across the southeastern and the southern portions of Barbour County. However, a tornado warning does continue until 3:45 for the southern portions of Barbour County. Anybody living along Alabama State Highway 10 from Clio down into Blue Springs. Everybody along that route still included within that tornado warning, and then up toward Louisville. We also still have that tornado warning in effect. I believe this may be State Highway 51 that runs up from Clio into Louisville. So anybody along State Highway 10 from the Pike County line all the way down into Blue Springs, and then Alabama Highway 51 from Clio up into Louisville. These are some of the locations that are still included with that tornado warning that continues until 3:45 this morning, so that stays in effect for about another 15 minutes or so. We're continuing to also watch a couple more areas in the line here that's now moving into the northwestern portions of Barbour County, so Louisville, Clayton, and then all the way up into the Bullock County line. There's a couple of different areas kind of embedded within that line where you're at the very least seeing some pretty strong winds, but you notice several of these little S-shape features that are there in the radar, which could wind up leading to some areas of rotation. And if we're going to see a quick spin-up tornado, sometimes it just happens. You get a quick spin-up tornado embedded within a line of storms. It spins up, it produces a tornado, it produces some damage, and by the time that tornado lifts, the tornado warning gets issued, but the tornado's already gone. So heads up, a first alert for you. Anybody that's living out here out across the northern portions of Barbour County, I just realized, I believe they canceled that tornado warning, Ryan. I'm not seeing that Polygon anymore down around Louisville. So that's right. Definitely some good news there. Looks like that tornado warning was canceled. I can confirm that that happened. So now no active tornado warnings in place around the region. However, you see all of these little S-shape features here within this velocity. This is an area of rotation. Yeah. This is an area of rotation. Actually, this is an area of rotation.
And actually, Zach, if you go a little bit farther down towards the Dale County line, it seems like there could be another pocket starting to pick up a little bit more strength towards Highway 51, just over the Barbour County line. So I'm watching that too as well. Maybe we might see this go warm, but I'll keep you updated if that is the case.
Yeah, and that's just... And that's just the things that we're watching out for as these line of storms move its way through the region. We're not talking about a very widespread threat for tornadoes, but along that leading line of storms, and you can especially see it over into Barbour County and now into the far northern portions of Dale County, there's several small areas of rotation that could be able to produce a very, very quick tornado. And by the time the tornado warning gets issued, well, that tornado's already dropped down, produced damage, and lifted. It's just the nature of the beast that we normally see whenever we have a tornado set up, when we have these little areas of rotation embedded in the line. So I've been showing you these out across the northern portions of Barbour County. Gonna have to watch each one of these for a threat for a potential quick spin-up tornado. So anybody in Clayton, I'd get pretty close to that tornado safe space. No tornado warnings in effect, but several small embedded areas of rotation that could very, very quickly produce a tornado. That's one thing that we need to watch out for. And then, as Ryan mentioned, over here in the northern portions of Dale County, just to the north of Ayrton, to the south of Doster, this is just barely north of the Barbour and Dale County line. There's another little area of rotation that we'll have to keep an eye on. We'll have to keep an eye on another area just to the south of Ayrton, but that's kind of what we're going to be dealing with as this line of thunderstorms continues to move its way off toward the east. Then looking a little bit further down the line, there's another couple of areas that we'll have to watch. I believe that's northern portions of Walton County, just to the southeast of Florala. A couple of areas in Geneva County that we're keeping an eye on, and the far southern portions of Coffee County as well. Ryan, can you get I don't know what we have our sky cam set to.
Oh,
but, can you get that switched over to Enterprise for me?
Absolutely. Let's go and check that out.
Because that's going to be one of the next locations where we see the leading edge of that line of storms moving through. And I'm trying to figure...
There we go.
Almost wonder, let's go ahead and end the coverage on air. Let's keep going on the stream, however. There's no tornado warnings in effect. If we do get another tornado warning, we'll jump back into coverage on air on WTVY and WRGX. Let's go ahead and end that coverage for now, and then we'll keep going here for the next several moments on streaming. Just continue to keep an eye on these potential areas of rotation. So anybody that's watching us on air, you can go to our Facebook page, you can go to our YouTube page, you can go to the WTVY app. Those are some areas where we'll continue to keep coverage going. But for right now, let's go ahead and end coverage on air, and then we'll continue that coverage over on streaming. All right, we're just gonna go ahead and keep going while they, we're gonna go ahead and keep going while they wind down coverage over on air. I'm gonna get one more thing pulled up on my phone. We have all sorts of information right at our fingertips that we're able to look at while we're on air, while we're covering these storms. So just trying to pull some of those things up now that we're starting to switch over to stream. I'll try to keep a little bit of a closer eye on our Facebook page. I know a lot of people love to ask questions on our Facebook stream, and now that we're starting to switch over to coverage on our stream, I should be able to keep a little bit of a closer eye on those questions that are showing up on our Facebook page. So
absolutely.
Anybody that's watching us on Facebook, I've got the comments pulled up on stream, and we'll continue to roll through here, and I'll try to keep up with questions. Ryan, I'm sure will do the same as we continue to track these storms that are moving through now the central portions of our area. We had the one tornado warning earlier in the morning for Pike and over into Barbour County. That has since been canceled. We've got severe thunderstorm warnings all up and down the leading edge of this line, but there's several areas where we are starting to see some of those areas of rotation, which could lead to some very, very quick spin-up tornadoes. The ones that I've been watching the closest over the past several minutes is out here over the northern portions of Barbour County, about to move into Clayton. Clayton, at the very least, you'll see some pretty strong winds moving through your area over the next several minutes. But there's also several very, very small areas of rotation that are showing up as well, which can lead to some quick spin-up tornadoes. Again, this is just kind of the nature of the beast in this situation, where you have some areas of rotation along the leading edge of a large line of showers and thunderstorms. You get these areas of rotation. They may quickly spin up a tornado, put a tornado on the ground, it produces damage, and it lifts before tornado warnings even issued. So anybody out here across the northern portions of Barbour County, out around Clayton, there's a couple of areas of rotation that we're keeping an eye on. Nothing that's tornado warned, but could very, very quickly lead to a quick spin-up tornado. Ryan.
And actually, I've got an update from our guys at the National Weather Service. The biggest thing, they are continuing to watch more of these notches as they develop, but right now they are concerned about side lobe contamination, which is a fancy word for radar contamination, trying to figure out if this is real rotation or if this is data coming in differently to the radar site, but they are watching it closely. I would say, Zach, keep doing what we are doing, is just watching these closely, because these can very quickly fire up in intensity.
Yeah, basically what Ryan means with side lobe contamination, we saw this a little bit earlier in the morning. You have some areas, and we're going to have to watch that pretty closely. That's a pretty tight area of rotation, but every now and again, just kind of the way radar works, you get some areas that look like rotation, but they're really not. There's some contamination that goes on that makes it look like rotation, but it actually isn't. I think this may actually be an area of rotation that's, this is State Highway 51 that runs from Louisville up into Clayton, just barely to the south and the southwest of Clayton. It's a pretty tight area of rotation. We'll have to see whether or not that winds up turning into a tornado warning. Not seeing anything on the debris tracker. And again, until we can get the sun up, this debris tracker is going to help us out the most when it comes to picking out tornadoes. Right now, not seeing anything that jumps out at me out along Highway 51 between Louisville and Clayton, where we may have a tornado on the ground. But
and actually, TJ, if you can in the back, if you could pull up the side camera looking at the Enterprise camera that I have pulled up. It is in black and white, but we can see a very defined look of that storm system coming in, the line and the lightning as well. He's working on bringing that up right now so y'all can see that, but it's got a pretty good pace to it. Biggest thing is putting out a lot of lightning. So these storms are packing some energy, but
a lot of punch.
Right, exactly. But one thing I will say, as of right now, for areas like Enterprise, I haven't seen anything in terms of very strong wind gusts or pockets of rotation. But yeah, you can see right there, pretty good line. You see where that cloud base is.
TJ, can we go full with that right quick?
Yeah, let's see if we can go full.
So one of the things that I notice, just looking at it from this smaller view, and we'll get this pulled up in the bigger view here in just a few moments, shelf cloud moving overhead.
That's right.
Looks scary. Obviously, a lot of lightning. That looks pretty scary as well. But a shelf cloud normally happens in this situation when you get a strong line of thunderstorms moving through your area. You just get a well-defined cloud that moves its way overhead right along the leading edge of that line of storms. Then once that moves overhead, you start to get the heavy rain. You start to get all the lightning. And Ryan, as you mentioned, that's a pretty good amount of lightning. It's a good indication of the kind of energy that we're dealing with in the skies here over the area.
And I'm going to switch to
Switch
Rawls
that
real
over
quick.
to the Rawls. Looks like we've already got some of that rain coming down. Camera doing quite a bit of shaking. You can also see some of those flashes of lightning as well. So it looks like the leading edge of that line of storms is starting to move over that part of the area. And that's what we'll continue to watch as these storms move their way through the region. Still no tornado warnings in effect. However, if we can go back to Max 2, if we can go back to Max 2 right quick. Barbour County, look how, I hate to describe it this way, but this is kind of the best way to describe it. Look how squiggly our line is, and just anywhere where you see just these little S shapes, we're going to have to watch each of these for the potential to quickly produce a tornado. Usually, whenever you start to see this line get a little bit more squiggly instead of more of a straight line, you have several embedded pockets of rotation in that could wind up leading to, in fact, there you go, tornado warning for the northern portions of Barbour County. I assume this is going to be your area of rotation. Just to the north of Clayton, this now includes Eufaula. So anybody over the northern portions of Barbour County, I just mentioned, these are some areas where you could see a quick spin-up tornado, and sure enough, we have another tornado warning that's now in effect for the northern portions of Barbour County. I know you guys are working on it, but if we can go ahead and get that coverage shifted back over to on air as well. Going to take a quick look at debris tracker. Nothing sticking out at me just yet, but this may happen quickly. This is one of those situations where these tornadoes can spin up very, very quickly and produce damage. North of Clayton in Barbour County, moving its way off toward the east, and there's another couple of smaller areas of rotation just to the south of this main area of rotation that may be able to produce a quick spin-up tornado. But for right now, our main area of concern is this area of rotation to the north of Clayton. This is an area that we were keeping our eye on about 25 to 30 minutes ago when it was still back over the northeastern portions of Pike County. That area of rotation has spun up enough where the National Weather Service in, I believe that's Birmingham. I believe Birmingham covers Barbour County. They saw enough, Birmingham, they saw enough rotation to issue a tornado warning for the northern portions of Barbour County. Ryan.
And Zach, I'll interrupt as well. For areas south in parts of Dale County as well, I'm watching for these pockets of winds. This is why they actually extended this severe thunderstorm warning for other areas of Dale County into Henry. They are watching out for this new line picking up some heavier pockets of wind, and I plotted these slightly a bit ago. Let me see if I can do that again, but some of these could be packing towards upper 50s, mid-upper to upper 50s. So stronger winds just north of Ozark towards areas of Dill, between Dill and Marley Mill as of right now. So just be aware of that too for areas south. But Zach, I'll toss it back to you as we track that tornado warning.
Yeah, still got the tornado warning that was just issued a few moments ago for the northern portions of Barbour County. Clayton, you're included within the tornado warning right now, but our main area of concern is off toward your north and your east. So Clayton, you'll likely see some very, very gusty winds moving through as this line of storms continues to move over your area. The place that we're watching the closest for a potential tornado is to the north of Clayton. You see where we got those bright greens, those bright blues. Again, winds blowing toward the radar, winds blowing away from the radar. That's where you have your area of rotation. Just a few miles to the northeast of Clayton, and there's some other smaller pockets of rotation now to the east of Clayton where you may see a quick spin-up tornado. For now, this continues to be radar-indicated rotation, and just like what we saw in Pike County, you had a moment where that rotation looked really, really tight. Now it's starting to get a little bit more less defined once again, which is some good news as far as the tornado threat goes. But again, we still have that tornado warning in effect. Again, your area of rotation is just to the north and northeast of Clayton. This is to the north of Highway 30. However, anybody over the east central portions of Barbour County over toward Eufaula, that's some of those areas where we still have that tornado warning in place there as they look at the debris tracker. Again, Nothing really that sticks out at me that suggests that we do have a tornado on the ground, which is definitely some good news. Just some radar indicated rotation, and this will continue to move its way off toward the east at generally around 45 miles per hour. That's been a pretty good idea for these storm motions. This one's moving east at 40 miles per hour. This is radar indicated rotation. This tornado warning is in effect until 4:30 in the morning. There's your area of rotation. This is now moving to the northeast of Clayton. Heads up Lugo. If this area of rotation holds together, you'll be the next location in line to see this potential tornado move its way overhead. And then this crosses over, this is highway, that's 431. This is highway, 82 that runs from Comer down into Lugo and then eventually meets up with highway 431 just to the north of Eufaula. So anybody along highway 82 through Lugo and then down into Eufaula, that's where we have this area of rotation, this potential tornado, and we'll continue to track that as it continues to move off toward the east. Elsewhere around the region, we're still tracking this leading edge of the line of showers and thunderstorms. And one thing I'll point out, the line not quite as well organized farther off toward the south. Notice you're not seeing a whole lot in the way of just a solid line of red stretching from the northern portions of Walton County through Geneva County now into Enterprise. You've got some of that heavy rain and some of those gusty winds moving through your area right now. Ozark, you'll start to see that heavier rain really start to pick up over the next several minutes, but the line not as well defined here across the southern portions of our region compared to what we're seeing off toward the north, where you see a lot more of those reds and a lot more of these S shapes that are some potential areas of rotation and could wind up leading to some potential quick spin-up tornadoes. There's another look at debris tracker. Again, some good news here. Not seeing a whole lot in the way of anything that would stick out to me that suggests that we have a tornado on the ground. That's good news. That's hopefully something that continues to be the case here as this continues to move its way off toward the east. But the primary area that we're watching is this area of broad rotation north of State Highway 30 in the north central portions of Barbour County. This is now northeast of Clayton. Again, anybody living in Clayton, you're still included in the tornado warning just for formality's sake. But the area of rotation, the area of where we may see a tornado, that's now well off toward your north and your east. Lugo and down into Eufaula. Those are some of those locations where you're still included in this tornado warning and you're still to the east of this potential area of rotation. And we're in a situation where this area of rotation could very, very quickly produce a tornado, produce some damage, then lift and continue to move eastward as it continues to make its way over closer to the Alabama and the Georgia state line. Another couple of areas that we're keeping an eye on, no tornado warnings in effect, but some areas that could be able to quickly produce a tornado. You see this area of rotation. I think that's that same area of rotation that originally prompted that tornado warning for Pike and over into Barbour County, now to the east of Clio. A little bit of an S shape there in our essentially our rotation tracker. That could wind up leading to a quick spin-up tornado. Another one farther off toward the south of it, and then over into the northern portions of Dale County, just to the northwest of Echo and to the northwest of the radar site. All of these areas, right along that leading line of showers and thunderstorms, could all be capable of very, very quickly producing a tornado. Right around Blue Springs are some of those locations where we have some of those areas of rotation in place. And again, that continues down into Dale County. But for right now, the one area that we're keeping our eye on, the closest, is an area of rotation that initially produced this tornado warning back when it was over closer to Clayton. It's a little bit less organized now, but a tornado warning still in effect for the north central and northeastern portions of Barbour County. Osco, my apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong, and then up toward Lugo. Those are going to kind of be our next couple of locations where we're watching for this area of rotation to move over. And then eventually this carries over just to the north of Eufaula, right where Highway 82 and Highway 431 meet, just to the north of Eufaula. That's where we have, yeah.
And yeah, sorry, I don't know if you have mentioned it yet, but there is another warning for some rotation up north, heading towards the Georgia state line for Benning, really riding across Highway 26 between Colbert, and Sanford.
I believe that's over in Russell County, so just barely. Yeah, that's just barely north of our area.
I'm sorry.
I
got my wires crossed.
You're good.
But yeah, so sorry. But it just shows again how active these storms are right now.
Yeah,
I apologize for that.
Yeah, and that's just kind of been what we've been seeing across this part of the line. We just have multiple areas of rotation that are starting to pop up over across, at least for our region, this northern part of the line. You have that one tornado warning for Russell County. That's just barely to the north of our area. However, I'm sure people have family that live up in portions of Russell County where that tornado warning is in effect. Anybody along Highway 431 up into Russell County is where that tornado warning is in effect. But there's other areas of rotation. There's another one right along the Barbour and Russell County line. There's another one just to the south of that, just to the north of Highway 82. We have the area of rotation that prompted the tornado warning for the northern portions of Barbour County. That will continue to move eastward toward Highway 82 over in the general direction of Eufaula, then down into the southern portions of Barbour County. There's some other just smaller areas of spin that could very, very quickly potentially produce a brief tornado. Southern portions of Barbour County, northern portions of Dale County, just to the north of Echo. Again, these are some of those locations where we could see a very, very quick spin-up tornado. Not seeing quite as many of those over in the southern half of the line. So pretty much from around the general area of Daleville down into Geneva and now down into Definiak Springs, you've got heavy rain. You've got gusty winds, you've got frequent lightning, but not really a whole lot that sticks out at me as far as any sort of quick spin-up tornadoes in this part of the line compared to what we're seeing farther off toward the north. We'll obviously continue to keep an eye on what's going on down here farther off toward the south, but for right now, our main area of concern is just several small areas of rotation, one of which has prompted a tornado warning for the north central portions of Barbour County, and this still includes Eufaula. We'll zoom back in on this. Ryan, keep an eye especially on the rotation in the southern portions of Barbour County, the one right here, right around Blue Springs, and then that other area of rotation just to the north of the radar site. Just keep an eye on those for me, especially if we get a warning issued for it. I think if we're going to get any more tornado warnings, it'll be down there for those parts of the county. Things continuing to look less and less organized with this area of rotation that's moving through now the northeastern portions of Barbour County. However, in Eufaula, I still want you in that tornado safe place. You're still under that tornado warning that goes until, what was it? Was it 4:30 this morning? So we will continue to keep a pretty close eye on any areas of rotation there. Heads up Lugo, anybody along Highway 82 over into Lugo, and then where it meets up with Highway 431 just to the north of Eufaula. That's going to be the general area that we're keeping an eye on, to where if we get a tornado on the ground, which again, this area of rotation appearing to look less and less organized as we continue to move this along, but if we were to get a tornado on the ground, it would kind of happen along Highway 82, or eventually will move its way over closer to Highway 82, anywhere between Lugo and Eufaula. So anybody in those locations, I still want you within that tornado safe space. Down toward Osco, and again, my apologies if I'm pronouncing that town wrong, just to the west of Eufaula, I think the area of rotation that prompted this tornado warning will stay off toward your north. So Lugo down into Eufaula, and then anybody living along Highway 82 between those two communities, those will kind of be the next areas where we see this area of rotation. I just saw this pop up on my phone, Ryan. Continue to keep an eye on that.
Of course.
The National Weather Service in Tallahassee says they're nearly to the point of a tornado warning for northeastern Dale and into Henry County, which we mentioned if we were going to get a tornado warning, it was going to be that area, and I believe it's going to be this part just to the east of Skipperville, north of Bell's Crossroads, south of Clopton. As this continues to move its way eastward, if we were to get a tornado on the ground, that's where this would happen, just along into the south of Highway 105 in the far northeastern portions of Dale County. If a tornado warning was to get issued, that would also include the northwestern portions of Henry County, at the very least, some pretty strong winds starting to move through, and there you go. There's your tornado warning for the northeastern portions, the far northeastern portions of Dale County, and then moving over into the northwestern portions of Henry County. This includes Bell's Crossroads. This includes Clopton. Either one of those regions, if you live in either one of those communities, I want to go ahead and get you into that tornado safe place. Looks like a couple of different areas of rotation that we're looking at over in the far northeastern portions of Dale County. This will continue to move its way eastward at generally between 40 to 45 miles per hour. That's kind of been the storm motion speeds on these storms along this leading edge of this line of storms. But Bearfield Crossroads over toward Bertha. So Bell's Crossroads, Bertha, Clopton, anybody in those locations, we have a couple of areas of rotation that we're going to have to keep a very, very close eye on because we're in a situation where these tornadoes could spin up pretty quickly. Obviously, we'll continue to keep our eye on debris tracker. One issue we may run into, the storm's pretty close to the radar site, which is good. We're getting a little bit better data, a little bit closer to the ground, so that'll help us out as far as the wind goes, but we can also start to see a bit more noise that can make this picture a little bit less clear with this being so close to the radar site. So that's something we'll have to keep in mind. But new tornado warning in effect for the far northeastern portions of Dale County, Dale County, and then including Abbeville over in the northern portions of Henry County. You see that little notch there right along that leading edge of the line. There's a couple of areas of rotation that, if the right conditions come together, could quickly produce a tornado. So heads up, first alert for you, anybody. Northeastern portions of Dale County, right around Bearfield Crossroads, and then continuing over into Henry County. I saw another alert that we have a tornado warning in effect. I think that's for areas north of us.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
More of those are popping up a little bit. It looks like they canceled the one heading towards Eufaula, though.
Yeah, that one's been canceled, so some good news there. However, we're still not done yet. Still got that tornado warning that has just been issued several minutes ago for Dale County and over into Henry County. Even without the potential for a tornado, there's some pretty strong winds here that's moving through the northeastern portions of Dale County. And since we're close to the radar site, we should be able to get a pretty good measure of what those winds are looking like. Out here around Bearfield Crossroads, we'll plot some of these winds. And again, some of these are a little bit closer to the ground. So even if we're not dealing with a tornado on the ground, we are, however, dealing with winds that may be up around 45 to 50 miles per hour. Now, that is just shy of severe weather criteria of a 58 or more miles per hour is your severe thunderstorm criteria. So we're right around that mark, and there's a better chance that these winds are getting down to the ground. The radar site in Echo is just a few miles off toward the south of there. So the primary area that I'm keeping my eye on the closest is right around Bearfield Crossroads. That's where we have what has been an area of rotation. I think that broad area of rotation is pretty much now right over Bearfield Crossroads. Heads up anybody living in Bertha, farther off toward the east. These are going to be some of our next locations in line, where if there was a tornado on the ground, it would move its way through Bearfield Crossroads and over into Bertha. Ryan, I want to toss things over to you right quick. Give us an idea of some of the things you're keeping an eye on right now.
Of course, yeah. So some of the things I've been keeping an eye on are potential areas where we could see maybe some rotation developing in the line even farther south, because we can't forget our southernmost counties, especially in areas, parts of Florida. I was watching here for areas towards Newton, but I think this is just a little enhancement of the winds right now. The radar, if you even switch back to base velocity, not seeing much right there, maybe just some pockets of lightning, but going farther down towards parts of Geneva, in a couple of scans, it almost looked like there could be some areas where the winds were widely trying to circulate around each other, but we typically see storms showing off winds at this time like that. And also when you switch radar sites too, it shows a totally different image. But these curves in the winds, it doesn't take much, but I'm going to be watching out for these curves here, because that could easily make for spins like we've been seeing already for areas north tonight too. So I'll be watching out for areas like Holmes County into Geneva, and of course once we get towards Houston County. But switching to the radar, biggest thing that I've noticed, even looking at the radar kind of on my phone, not as much in terms of the strength of the reflectivity here. Also, really not seeing much indication in terms of lightning, so that might be an indication that some of these storms are slightly weaker farther to the south. Yeah. But I know through the modeling that we've been checking for the past few days, that into the the later morning hours towards sunrise, we were going to be seeing a little bit more of that energy kind of sandwiched together in areas more south into parts of, like, say, Houston County into Florida County. So we're also keeping that in mind too. Not saying this is endgame. These storms could strengthen as the morning continues. But yeah, these little curves right here, I'll be watching out to see if they can become more unified as we watch out for the current warning farther to the north. But yeah, still looking like that rotation is kicking as it's starting to make its way towards Henry County now. A little bit more towards Bertha, just making its way south of Bearfield Crossroads, along County Road 69 as well. So those areas too, just want to make sure that you are in your safe place. Zach actually did a really good review for Weather Extra last night on the best places to be in the interior of your home, away from windows. If you have a storm shelter, that is also great to be there. But yeah, we'll be watching out for that rotation very quickly, or as it continues. Even in this next scan, not seeing as much of a curve to it, but it is evolving, and we'll be watching that very closely.
Yeah, Ryan, I think we're starting to transition at least this part of the line where that tornado warning is in effect, just like what we saw back over Pike County, just like what we saw back over Barbour County. I think the tornado threat is starting to go down as this area of rotation gets a little bit less defined, but we're starting to transition that back over into a damaging wind threat. There's a look at some of the wind speeds in some of that rain as that leading edge of the line of storms moves through, and you notice some of these getting north of 55 and up to around 60 miles per hour, which is right around the criteria for what would be necessary for a severe thunderstorm warning. This can cause some straight line wind damage, so we may see some brief moments where we get a tornado that could very, very briefly spin up, touchdown, produce damage, and then lift, and everything's fine as far as a tornado threat goes. But once you start getting these winds up around 58, 59, 60 miles per hour and greater, which is what we're starting to see, especially now as we get closer to the radar site, you may not deal with quite as much in the way of a tornado threat, but damaging winds, when you get some of these up around 55 or 60 miles per hour, you have to start to watch out for the potential for some straight line winds that can produce some damage, produce some tree damage, and potentially knock out power. So short-term tornado threat, kind of the long-term threat for us is going to be more in the way of strong gusty winds. Nonetheless, we still have this tornado warning that's in effect for the far northeastern portions of Dale County. Echo, you are not included within this tornado warning. And then that warning extends eastward over into Henry County. It includes Abbeville. Abbeville, you're included within this tornado warning. Anybody living along Highway 431 through the northern portions of Henry County, we still have that tornado warning in effect. But our primary area of concern is still a good ways back toward the west of Abbeville, pretty much right over the Dale County and the Henry County line. That's where we have any sort of potential for a tornado. That's pretty much is where it's located, right along the Dale and the Henry County line. And we'll back this up. And again, not as well defined now as what we saw when the warning was first issued. We'll back this up and show you where this rotation was a little bit more well defined. You can really see it spin up right here, just to the northwest of Echo. It's a pretty well defined area of rotation, but as this has continued to move its way off toward the east, you see a lot less in the way of just tight rotation like what you saw here. And you see those bright greens, they get a lot more spread out. That typically means A lower threat that we get a quick spin-up tornado, but a higher threat for anybody that's living under where we have some of these bright greens in place, a bit of a higher threat that we could see some straight line winds, potentially do some tree damage and produce some power outages. So far, have not seen any reports of damage, which is definitely some good news. Ryan, do you want to take a moment right quick? I know you're really good with pulling up the power outage stuff. Do you think you could get that pulled up for us right quick?
Of course, yeah. I'll go ahead and start getting that pulled up so we can check out power outages throughout our area too. But I know looking through the Facebook comments on our stream that people have talked about power outages. Again, our producer Sean Sporman, when we were tracking storms through parts of Brundage, that was also an area where we already saw power outages too. But yeah, let me pull that up real quick.
Yeah. While Ryan's doing that, we'll continue to keep an eye on now pretty much the northern portions of Henry County. I think this main area of rotation has moved out of Dale County, and this is now a Henry County ordeal. And still not a very well-defined area of rotation, at least not as well-defined as what we saw just a few moments ago when this tornado warning was first issued. And I believe this tornado warning goes until 4:30. That is for Russell County. I believe this still goes until 4:30. I can pull that up right quick. Tornado warning until 4:30. So this goes on for about another 25 minutes or so. We have seen several of these warnings get canceled early because the area of rotation really starts to weaken. And there's a chance where I think we're seeing this happen as well with this storm. We will still watch out for this. There's still a little bit of an area of rotation in place. It's right along the far southern edge of this tornado warning. So anybody that's back over in Dale County that's still under this tornado warning, for formality's sake, you're still located within the tornado warning polygon. However, our area of rotation has now moved over into Henry County, and even then our area of rotation not looking very well defined. And notice how close we are to the radar site. There's the radar site just right here where my finger is. We're not too terribly far away from the radar site, so we're getting good data from this and just not seeing a whole lot of organization as far as this area of rotation goes, which is definitely some good news. We've had plenty of just quick areas of rotation that have spun up, but fortunately has not led, at least to our knowledge, any sort of tornado warnings or anything like that. So we'll continue to keep an eye on Henry County. We'll keep an eye on that small area of rotation, not very, very well defined. A tornado warning continues until 4:30. Tallahassee just issued a tornado. They canceled that tornado warning for Dale County. I believe it still continues for over into Henry County. And yeah, you see the updated polygon there. Dale County, you're no longer included within this tornado warning. This is now exclusively a Henry County ordeal. I guess that's probably the best way to talk about it. Area of rotation here just to the southwest of Abbeville. I think this continues to move east and stays to the south of Abbeville. Still want you within that tornado safe place if you're in Abbeville, because you're still included within this tornado warning, and we'll still have to watch out for any areas of spin that may come up along the leading edge of that line to the north of that main area of rotation. But for right now, things looking pretty good in Abbeville. Your main area of rotation is back off toward your south and your west. I did want to do a quick reset right quick and show you what's going on elsewhere around the region. Heavy rain, gusty winds right now moving through Eufaula and out across the eastern portions of Barbour County. Then continuing down into Henry County, we got the tornado warning that's in effect mostly for the central portions of Henry County to the southwest of Abbeville. I think that area of rotation will continue to stay south of Abbeville as it continues to move off toward the east. Then down into the southeast corner of Dale County. That rain now pretty much moving over the radar site in Echo. That continues farther off toward the south over Highway 231, about to move into places like Pinkard and Midland City if it's not already there. Some of that rain will start coming down very, very shortly out at the airport, the Dothan Regional Airport. Dothan, you saw a few quick showers move through your area. Those are now moving off toward the north and the east and out of Dothan. However, that main line of storms is starting to get closer to your region, just starting to move into, I guess we'll call that the panhandle of Houston County, just that little bit of Houston County that juts farther back off toward the west. That's where we're seeing those storms starting to move through. Over in Geneva County, that heavier rain is starting to come down, and this is now moving over into a good portion of Holmes and down into Walton County as well. Things just about wrapping up into Phoenix Springs. Things are pretty much wrapped up in Geneva, and that's another thing I want to mention right quick. I want to take you to a big view, a home view of Doppler radar. Obviously still have the tornado warning. There's one of those giant severe thunderstorm warnings just got issued for Geneva, Dale, Henry, Houston, over into Clay and Early counties in southwest Georgia. Still have the one tornado warning that we're keeping an eye on in the central portions of Henry County. And then if you live over in Okaloosa, Covington, Crenshaw, Pike, Coffee, the western portions of Geneva County, western portions of Dale County, just about all of Barbour County, that leading edge of the line of storms is now moving over into Eufaula, over in the far eastern portions of the county. But if you live in central and western Barbour, western Dale, western Geneva, all of Coffee, Pike, Crenshaw, Covington, Okaloosa, and the northwestern corner of Walton County, your severe weather threat for the day is over. It's still locations that are along and east of that line of storms. So eastern Holmes County, all of Jackson County, much of Houston County, a good portion still of Henry County, and then over into Clay, Early, and Seminole County, over in southwest Georgia. Those are some of the locations where this threat for severe weather continues for likely the next probably about an hour or two, maybe not even 2 hours, probably about an hour or so. This line's doing a pretty good job of moving its way off toward the east. Still keeping an eye on that tornado warning that's still in effect for Henry County, a little area of rotation that we're keeping an eye on just to the north of Capps, about to move over Highway 431, just to the southwest of Abbeville. And then there's another area of rotation that's right over Highway 431, just to the west of Abbeville. Going to keep my eye on that as well. That could wind up leading to maybe a quick spin-up tornado as well. We'll continue to keep a close eye on that. I want to toss things over to Ryan right quick if we have him available. And Ryan, give us an update on what we're seeing as far as power outages go across the region.
Yeah, of course, Zach, while you're keeping track of some of those pockets of rotation too. But what I do like is what you mentioned, how quickly this line does seem to be moving too. So in terms of flooding threat, we knew it was going to be low. We're not seeing anything in terms of that, even though we need all the rain that we can get. But so far so good, especially as this continues to move through. Make sure that, or it helps to make sure that areas west are outside of that severe weather threat. You can go back to sleep while we are still watching for areas to the east that can still see that line. But many are likely also seeing power outages in effect for many areas. I know I got a text earlier for a couple people experiencing power outages, and many of you on Facebook commenting in our live stream saying power outages were becoming very evident throughout our area. So we're going to be highlighting some of those areas. A great resource that I like to use, poweroutage.com. They're a great resource. You can see power outages throughout the U.S., and we can see where they kind of bottled up here, where that severe weather started to make its way back into, or started to fire up a little bit more in our region, I should say. Crenshaw County, out of, more than 7,000 customers tracked, and this takes place for, or what it accounts for is many electric cooperatives, electric companies that supply power to many customers. Over 1,000 are without power as of right now, and we're seeing more of those thousands in parts of Pike County as well. A little bit more in terms of customers tracked, but still more than 1,300 customers without power. That's really where we started to see more of those storms firing up for the first time. And even in parts of Geneva, we're even seeing some power outages as of there. A lot more customers tracked, but still over 1,300 customers without power. And we're actually going to be switching over here. Let's take a look over at Wiregrass Electric. Now, this is a really good resource too in terms of power outages as well. Really towards Sampson, we're seeing a nice bottleneck of some of those power outages just south of Sampson, south of Highway 52, then going farther to the north, just south of the Enterprise Municipal Airport here, hundreds of without power as well. Now, some of those icons you see where it looks like a person is in that red icon, that means the crew is already starting to respond for those power outages. And I know that they respond pretty quickly and try to get those power that electricity back up as well. Then a few more as we lead towards Hartford for customers of Wiregrass Electric Cooperative. Then going to Alabama Power, where we see power outages throughout the state. This is where I saw a little bit more of a focus here in parts of Barbour County towards Eufaula, where we saw many of those spin-ups, even some enhancement of those gusty winds, and so likely could have knocked out power, also knocked off limbs into power lines. That's also another way that power can be disrupted. But multiple customers out there, then going farther south into parts of Geneva, into Dale County, a few there as well. And I also have the web outage viewer for Dothan Utilities pulled up. When we see that this line makes its way through, I'll be tracking to see if we can see some of those outages come in, if there are any reported in the Dothan area as well. But yeah, in terms of the power outages, definitely widespread through many of our counties, but really more along the lines of where we saw that those storms and pockets of rotation really fired up for areas north. So hopefully we'll see more of those crews coming in to get that power back up as well. And also, this is just an indication too, while we haven't seen anything in terms of reports of damage, trees down, or anything like that, just best to be aware, especially into tomorrow morning as you're waking up, starting to make your way towards work, to school, or any other commute that you may have. Just be aware on those side roads, those small county roads, just watch out for limbs as well, because those can be a hindrance to vehicles, especially if they're low-lying to the ground. And just be careful around turns, because sometimes maybe a tree that hasn't been reported yet is down on the road, and you don't want to be flying around corners where a tree may be in place or in the way as well. So yeah, that's just something to think about as we head into this morning. But Zach, I'll continue to watch out for any new power outages that we may get throughout our region. What are you seeing new on the radar in terms of rotation? Yeah,
let's go ahead and take this back over to radar. We're starting to get those storms moving into a little bit closer to places like Dothan, and I'm also starting to notice some smaller areas of rotation that are starting to pick up within the line farther off toward the south. I'll start you out with a look at radar. Rain still coming down pretty heavily in Eufaula, but the leading edge of that line has now moved eastward and out of your region. Baker Hill, it's a lot of the same. Still got some rain coming down, but the leading edge of that line of storms has moved through your area. We still have that tornado warning that's in effect for Henry County. And we're still tracking just some small areas of rotation. There's one area now just to the east of Abbeville along State Highway 10 where there may be a little bit of rotation. That's a very, very small tornado warning now. I think our primary concern is for this pocket of rotation just to the east of Abbeville over in Henry County. Then continuing farther off toward the south, when we were tracking these storms as they were moving through the northern portions of our region, through Barbour County, Pike County, and then into Henry County, we pointed out several small areas of rotation that wound up leading to a handful of tornado warnings. We're starting to see some indications of that farther off toward the south as well. From Headland, getting close to Dothan, I'm watching this area of rotation pretty closely, just to the southwest of the circuit, just crossed over out of Geneva County and over into Houston County, north of Rehoboth, kind of right around the Taylor area. There's a little area of rotation that we'll have to keep an eye on, maybe another one a little bit closer to Rehoboth, and then another one that if it manages to get a little bit tighter, we'll have to also watch that one for maybe a tornado warning as well. So as this line is starting to get closer to Dothan, through the eastern portions of Geneva County, western portions of Houston County, some of those same small areas of spin that we were tracking when this line was moving through farther off toward the north, we're starting to see some of those indications pop up along the leading edge of the line as it starts getting closer to places like Dothan. So that's going to be our next thing that we'll have to keep an eye on. Some strong gusty winds moving through portions of the Florida Panhandle. Most of that is now pushed through places like the Phoenix Springs and Ponce de Leon, but this is now starting to move over to places like Bonifay, Chipley, Graceville, places like that. You may see a little bit more in the way of gusty winds. But again, just like what we were tracking earlier in the morning, when these storms moved through the northern portions of the region, just some small little pockets of rotation stretching from the southern portions of Henry County through northwestern Houston County and now down into the eastern portions of Geneva County. In fact, there you go. New tornado warning for Henry County. This is an area of rotation that is right along that leading edge of the line of storms. This is pretty much right over the Tumbleton community over in Henry County. Headland, you are not included in this. Newville, you are not included in this. But over into Haleburg, you are included in this. This is a new tornado warning for Henry County for radar indicated rotation. We also still have that other tornado warning that's still in effect farther off toward the north for an area of rotation that is in between Abbeville and Shorterville. Not very well defined, but still there and still tornado warned. We'll continue to keep an eye on that as well. But we do have this new area of rotation that has now produced a tornado warning for Henry County, and then this extends over into Early County. It does not quite include Blakely just yet. And then we're continuing to watch farther down the line, northern portions of Houston County along Highway 431. There's a small area of rotation that we're watching. Another little pocket just to the southwest of the circle, just to the southwest of Dothan that we're watching, and another area of, at the very least, strong winds. It's moving through the eastern portions of Geneva County. So several areas that we're continuing to keep an eye on. Ryan, make sure that we don't miss anything for Houston and Geneva County. I'll zoom back into this area of rotation that's in Henry County that has produced the tornado warning for Henry County. Again, this area of rotation pretty much right over or just to the southeast of the Tumbleton community, in between Tumbleton and Granbury Crossroads. That's where we have a area of rotation that has tightened up just enough to produce a tornado warning. We will quickly take a look at the debris tracker. Nothing that is jumping out at me that suggests that we have a tornado on the ground, which is some good news. That's something we have seen throughout the morning, and hopefully that is something that we'll continue to see as we head through the rest of the morning. We get some tornado warnings, we get some small areas of rotation, but hopefully nothing that winds up leading to any actual tornadoes on the ground. I will say for Eufaula, your severe weather threat pretty much over. That line of storms has moved through your area. Enterprise, your severe weather threat is over. Coffee Springs, Ozark, Troy, Banks, Brundage, Clio, Louisville, places like that. Anywhere farther back off toward the west, all of Coffee County, your severe weather threat is over. It's right along this leading edge of the line of storms that's moving through Holmes, just about completely out of Geneva County. We're still watching that far southeast corner of Geneva County for a little bit of a continuing severe weather threat. This leading line of storms is now starting to move into downtown Dothan. I'm looking out of the corner of my eye. I can see the view back up Foster Street. Definitely got some heavy rain coming down. We'll watch for anything that may quickly spin up there. Nothing that jumps out at me at that point. The places that I'm watching the closest, one where we have those couple of areas of rotation up around Henry County, but heads up, northern portions of Houston County, no tornado warning in effect just yet. However, just to the east of Kinsey, about to move over, how about that, Webb to Kinsey Road. How about that for the name of a road? In between Kinsey and Webb, another pretty tight area of rotation. No tornado warning in effect right now. However, first alert for you, anybody that's living out here in the northern portions of Houston County, north of Webb, out toward Pleasant Plains, out toward Pierce. Again, no tornado warning in effect just yet, but I am watching that very, 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 very closely for a quick spin-up tornado. And then we're continuing to watch that couple of areas of rotation out across portions of Henry County, one just to the northwest of Haleburg, another one just to the southwest of Haleburg. But again, no tornado warning just yet, but northern portions of Houston County, east of Kinsey, north of Webb, anybody that's living out there out across the northern portions of Houston County, that could extend all the way over into Columbia if this area of rotation holds pretty steady. Again, no tornado warning just yet, but man, we have got to be right on the edge of potentially seeing a tornado warning for the northern portions of Houston County. Then farther back off toward the south, some very, very gusty winds moving through Dothan, moving through Taylor, moving through Rehoboth, and then now starting to move out of Geneva County and over into the southern portions of Houston County. So anybody that lives out along Highway 231, get ready to see some heavy rain, some gusty winds, a pretty good amount of lightning. It'll be pretty loud as this moves through, but for right now, no tornado warning, no real concerns there. man, still keeping a close eye on that area of rotation out across the northern portions of Houston County. Ryan, do you have anything?
Yeah. The National Weather Service, our guys there, they are watching that closely. They haven't gone on a warning just yet because of that rotation broadening out slightly. But I would still say everyone in the path of this, go ahead to your safe place. Go there because you don't need a warning for something to be on the ground. While we're watching this, I would just say, be as safe as you can as this progresses east.
Yeah. That's just kind of been what we've seen with these tornado warnings as we've continued to track these throughout the morning. It looks very, very similar to what we're seeing right now out across the northern portions of Houston County. No tornado warning just yet. Formally, there's no tornado warning in effect just yet, but the way that looks on velocity, our storm relative velocity, this is a kind of signature that has led to tornado warnings farther off toward the north, and in fact, we still have those 2 tornado warnings that are in effect for Henry County. I will say this northernmost one, there's no area of rotation anywhere located within that polygon. So Abbeville, you're still under a tornado warning, but there's no area of rotation that's anywhere around Abbeville or anywhere within that tornado warning polygon. So no concern for a possible tornado anywhere around Abbeville or anywhere within that tornado warning polygon. There are a couple of areas of rotation that need to be watched that are both included within this tornado warning farther off toward the south. One is just moved over State Highway 95 to the north of Haleburg. What's that view there? Can somebody get in my ear and tell me what that view
is? Southeast Health, looking at some street. I zoomed in to see the rain coming down in droves. We can see also some gusty winds as well.
Okay. We'll keep an eye on that. Couple areas of rotation located within that tornado warning over in Henry County. One north of Haleburg, crossing over State Highway 95. Another one farther back off toward the southwest of Haleburg, and I think they just issued a tornado warning. So, all right, here we go. Tornado warning for the northern portions and northeastern portions of Houston County. Then this extends over into, I think that's the southern portions of Early County as well. We were mentioning that this area of rotation is similar to what we've seen with previous tornado warnings that have been issued. I will go ahead and say right off the top of the bat, because I know we're going to see questions about this, you may hear the tornado sirens go off in Dothan. You may hear the tornado sirens go off in Rehoboth, in Taylor, in Cottonwood, in places like that. You are not included within the tornado warning. This tornado warning is for the northeast corner of Houston County, Webb, not quite into Ashford, Gordon, Columbia. That's where we have that tornado warning in place. Ryan.
And Zach, go ahead and switch over to the debris tracker because National Weather Service picked up on go back to that last scan. They're possibly picking up on debris signature.
Okay.
It kind of faded in that latest scan, but right where your finger is, that's what they were picking up on.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a lowering there. That's definitely something that we'll have to keep an eye on. But again, I want to stress, anybody that's elsewhere in Houston County, Dothan, Taylor, Rehoboth, Cottonwood, all those locations, you may hear the tornado sirens go off. Tornado sirens typically work on a county basis. They don't normally work on a polygon basis. So you may hear the tornado sirens go off in Dothan, in Taylor, in Rehoboth, in Cottonwood, elsewhere around the county. However, there's just the one place where we actually have the tornado warning in effect, and it's pretty much everybody that lives north of Highway 84 and to the east of Highway 431 over here in the northeastern portions of Houston County. That's where we have the tornado warning in effect right now. However, first alert for you, across the rest of Houston County, off toward the south, just crossing over Highway 231, east of Rehoboth. That's another area that we'll have to watch for a quick spin-up tornado. Then out across the far southern portions of Houston County, about to move over Highway 231, kind of around that Madrid-Cottonwood area. These are another couple places where we're going to have to watch for a quick spin-up tornado. No tornado warning in effect for either one of those right now, but that's another couple of locations where we'll have to watch for a quick spin-up tornado. Still continuing to watch this little bit of a blip here that's showing up on our debris tracker. I don't want to say with certainty yet that means that we have a tornado on the ground unless they update the warning to say that there is a tornado on the ground. That is something I'm watching. That lines up pretty closely to where we had that area of rotation in place. Again, I don't think it's quite clear enough to say with absolute confirmation that we have a tornado on the ground, but if we were going to get a tornado on the ground, it would be just to the west of Webb. This is Highway, 53? 52, north of Pierce, about to move over into Sigma. So over here in between Pierce and Sigma, north of Highway 52, this is County Road 55 that runs northward out of Pierce and into Pleasant Plains over the northern portions of Houston County, just to the south of Bill Yance Road. So pretty much where Bill Yance Road and County Road 55 come together to the north of Pierce. That's where we have a bit of an increase in that rotation around the region, and we're technically dealing with 3 different tornado warnings. I again want to mention anybody that's living up around Abbeville, yes, you're still under a tornado warning, but there's no area of rotation in any part of that. However, we are having to watch now across the center portions of our line. A couple of areas of rotation with that tornado warning for Henry County that extends over into Early County and Blakely. The big area of rotation that we're watching there in the northern portions of Houston County, just to the east of Webb, that has prompted a tornado warning that includes Columbia and Gordon farther downstream. Another area of rotation that will need to be watched very, very closely now moving into the southern portions of Houston County. It's now east of Highway 231 and then farther down into the southern portions of Houston County, yet another area of rotation that will need to be watched for a quick spin-up tornado in the southern portions of Houston County. This is some of the same exact stuff we were tracking out across the northern portions of the line earlier in the morning. That has now settled into portions of Houston County as well. We'll zoom back in onto that area of rotation over the northern portions of Houston County, and also pretty similar to what we've seen throughout the morning. You get a real quick enhancement in some of that rotation where it looks pretty good and pretty close to producing a tornado. Then it starts to get a little bit more diffuse. I think that's what's happening right now over the northern portions of Houston County. However, anybody that's still living along and north of Highway 52, now east of Webb, southeast of Pleasant Plains, and about to move over into Columbia. Anybody out over this part of Houston County, a tornado warning is still in effect, and they have actually updated this to include a tornado on the ground, and that was probably when we had, it was probably, where was it? I don't know why I can't see it now, but that's where we had that debris ball that we were watching, that little bit of a lowering in the correlation coefficient, our debris tracker. I believe we may have had a quick spin-up tornado here just to the west, or excuse me, just to the east of Webb. Not seeing anything that suggests that we have a tornado on the ground anymore. Ryan, it's a little bit easier to see on my phone. I'm looking at that storm on my phone. I can see it where that happened, right here over the northern portions of Houston County. It's a little bit difficult to see with what we've got here, but pretty much from where my finger is here to right about here, it looks like we had a very, very brief tornado on the ground. I see it a lot clearer on my phone than what we're able to see here. I'll try to back this up and see if I can show that right quickly. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah, with this product, it has been a little bit difficult on the system here, but yeah, a little bit closer on the phone. But it was a little bit more prominent right before you switched over when I was telling you about it. It was a little bit more prominent, but then it went away right when we switched, but yeah, that's exactly.
We did, yeah, we did. We had a brief tornado on the ground here east of Kinsey, moved just to the northeast of Webb. I wish I could show you my phone right now because, yeah, I definitely saw the debris ball there on my phone, but it's a little bit more difficult to see with the radar that we have. Maybe able to see it there. Maybe a little bit of a lowering right there. I don't want to say that's a confirmed tornado. I will loop this right quick to see if it pops. We'll have to watch that. That's a little bit of a lowering in our debris tracker. I'm not sure. We can zoom in and see if that lines up with that area of rotation. Maybe.
It may be.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an area of rotation right here along Highway 52, just to the east of Webb. It's not very well defined, but when you pull up the debris tracker, there is a little bit of a lowering there in the correlation coefficient, our debris tracker, that's right along Highway 52. That's pretty close to where that area of rotation is. I don't think so. I think we would see a more well-defined area of rotation there if that would lead to a tornado. So could be an artifact, but we definitely had a tornado that was very, very briefly on the ground. It's a little bit difficult for us to show you on this, but Kenzie's right about here, and then you see Webb. There was a tornado that moved right about through here. I'm able to see it on my phone. It's a little bit difficult to see in the radar products that we have, but we did have a very, very brief tornado that touched down just to the north of Webb. That area of rotation starting to become a little bit less organized here, right along Highway 52 as it continues up into Columbia. We still have that area of rotation to the north of Columbia over in the southeastern portions of Henry County. That is about to move over into parts of Early County. We'll have to watch that. There was an observed tornado on that too. A little bit difficult to see on that one as well. May have spun up there just to the east of Haleburg. Let's see if we can pull that part up. And again, it's been a little bit difficult to see with how quickly these have spun up. I believe we may have had, man, it's even a little bit tough to see on my phone, but that's kind of the situation that we're in here. With these quick spin up tornadoes, you get these tornadoes that touch down. They're on the ground for a handful of miles. They does damage, lofts debris up into the air, and you see it for maybe a few scans on radar, and then it's gone. That's kind of the situation that we're dealing with here with some of these quick spin up tornadoes. So a couple of brief tornadoes have now been on the ground, one out across the northern portions of Houston County, then another one out across the southeastern portions of Henry County. And we are continuing to keep an eye. There's a new tornado warning right along the Alabama and the Florida County line. This area of rotation that's now moving through the far northern portions of Jackson County has now prompted a tornado warning. This is pretty much for anybody that lives right along the Alabama and the Florida state line. Cottonwood, you're included in this tornado warning, but your main area of rotation is off towards your south. There is another area of rotation just off toward the north of Cottonwood that we'll have to watch for as well. But Malone, and then anybody that's living over in the southeastern portions of Jackson County and the northern portions of Jackson County, Houston County and Jackson County. That's where we have that tornado warning in effect. Another area of rotation that we have to watch right through the central portions of Houston County. Another area of rotation farther down into Jackson County, just to the north of Chipley, just to the southeast of Graceville. Again, just small areas of rotation that have spun up. And in some cases, out across the northern portions of Houston County and over into southeastern Henry County, we have seen a couple of brief tornadoes on the ground, which is exactly what we expect to see in this situation where you have this leading edge of a line of showers and thunderstorms. You get these small areas of rotation that spin up, quickly produce a tornado, and then it lifts, and it sometimes never produces a tornado ever again. Again, we saw one of those back toward around Webb and Kenzie. There was another one that moved through the southeastern portions of Henry County. Some tornado warnings continue, but for right now, not seeing any indications of observed tornadoes still on the ground. So quick reset here. A couple of areas of rotation that have now moved out of Henry County and over into southwest Georgia, over into Early County. One area of rotation starting to move closer to Georgia Highway 39 to the northwest of Blakely. Another one southwest of Blakely, just to the north of Georgia Highway 62. This is just crossed over the Alabama state line and over into Early County. Anybody that's living in Henry County, you still have some tornado warnings in effect. However, those areas of rotation have now moved eastward, have moved out of your area. I think anybody in Henry County, your severe weather threat just about over for the day. I will say this line has already moved through Dothan. Dothan, your severe weather threat is over. Rehoboth, your severe weather threat is over. Taylor, your severe weather threat is over. Any locations farther back off toward the west, your severe weather threat is over. Central and eastern portions of Houston County, there's a couple tornado warnings in effect, and we're also watching for another area of rotation in between Ashford and Cottonwood that is not tornado warned, but we have some areas of rotation within that could quickly produce a tornado. I'll start off with our one that's a little bit farther off toward the north, to the south of Columbia. That area of rotation getting a little bit less defined, but this area of rotation does have a history of producing a very, very brief tornado. When this is back off toward the west, it moved just to the east of Kenzie and just to the northeast of Webb. Then that area of rotation has continued to carry off toward the east. Ashford, the leading edge of that line of storms, is moving through your area right now. We're watching this area of, at the very least, some pretty strong winds. Small area of rotation there in between Ashford and Cottonwood. First alert on that. No tornado warning in effect right now, but a first alert over for places like Gordon. You're under a tornado warning right now, but that's for the area of rotation farther off toward the north. I would not be surprised to see a tornado warning eventually get issued for that area of rotation that is now to the south of Ashford, to the south of Highway 84. This will continue to move eastward and eventually make its way over closer to Gordon. Then farther off toward the south, we have another area of rotation that's pretty much right along the Alabama and the Florida state line. Cottonwood, you were included within this tornado warning, but the area of rotation is off toward your south. Anybody that's living right here along the Alabama and the Florida state line, the Houston County line and the Jackson County line, that's where that area of rotation is. Farther back off toward the west state line over toward Campbellton, this area of rotation is to the east of you. This should stay north of Sills over in Jackson County, stays north of Florida Highway 2, moves over Florida Highway 167 over the next several moments, and then heads up. Anybody that lives over around the Grangeburg community, this area of rotation will start to move your way over the next several moments, continuing to keep an eye on some of those other tornado warnings off toward the north. I've got a radar pulled up on my phone because I've been able to see some of these lowerings in the correlation coefficient in our debris tracker. I've been able to see those a little bit better than what we have here. So a few different tornado warnings still in effect. One for Henry County. However, the problem areas, the areas of rotation that prompted those tornado warnings, A, they've gotten a little bit weaker. B, they've now moved over into Early County. There's one just to the north of Blakely, one to the southwest of Blakely that will continue to keep an eye on. There is another area of rotation which has also gotten a little bit weaker, a little bit less defined, just to the south of Columbia. It's in between Columbia and Gordon, about to move over into southwest Georgia, over into the far western portions of Early County. Another area of spin that does not have a tornado warning on it just yet, but we do see an area of rotation south of Ashford and to the northeast of Cottonwood. This will eventually move over into Gordon. That's another area that we'll continue to keep an eye on. And then the other place where we have that tornado warning in effect, right along the Alabama and the Florida state line. Southern Houston, northern portions of Jackson County, we have a tornado warning in effect, and there's another couple of areas of spin that could wind up leading to some additional potential tornado warnings as we continue to work our way farther to the south and into Jackson County. Again, not really overly concerned now with these northernmost tornado warnings. A couple of very broad, very light areas of rotation that are now moving into the eastern portions, or excuse me, the western portions of Early County, about to move over into Blakely. Another area of rotation right along the Alabama and the Georgia state line, just to the south of Columbia. And then we also have those couple areas of rotation that we're continuing to keep an eye on. One does not have a tornado warning on it, just to the southeast of Ashford, about to move over closer to Gordon, and then the area of rotation that is right along the Alabama and the Florida state line. Ryan, I want to toss things over to you right quick. Tell us about some of the things that you're watching at the moment.
Yeah, it's really those main areas of rotation. Those warnings farther to the north, not too prominent. This is also just base velocity. Let me switch back over to storm relative velocity. And yeah, these northernmost storms haven't really been seeing much where they're continuing to hold on to their strength. They appear to be weakening as they make their way toward Georgia. And really, it's this main curve right here that I've been watching for very closely for several scans. Again, this is the one that we had been watching just south of Highway 84 after it passed south of Dothan, heading in between Cottonwood and Ashford. It's been holding on to that curving structure, but has not been warned. But yeah, we can see that the pocket of rotation has been holding steady. It's really mainly this one farther to the south, holding along that Florida-Alabama line, just south of Highway 53 right there, as it's making its way towards Grangeburg. But I will say, this isn't very it's not very confined. It seems very broad in terms of how these winds are behaving right now. And I've continued to track through the debris tracker to see if I've seen any more drops in those values, similar to what we saw with the radar confirmed tornadoes associated with those warnings farther to the north. But I haven't seen anything like that over the past several scans, which is good news if this is just a warned area of rotation, but not seeing anything pertaining to tornado touching down. And of course, we're still getting messages from the National Weather Service, but I would like to point out for everyone watching too, because we're still getting some questions on Facebook for really many areas, or really all of our Alabama counties besides this eastern portion of Houston County that we're continuing to watch out for these areas of rotation. It's really places including Gordon, towards, let's see here, towards Crosby, Lucy, Highway 95. We're still watching out for those areas of rotation as they make their way to, even crossing into Florida, Malone, Highway 2, heading towards Georgia. We'll be eyeing that. But for many of our other Alabama counties, you are out of the severe weather threat, as you will likely just be seeing light rain as the system continues to push through. So yeah, if you are behind this circled area or behind these heavy winds, you can likely go back to bed. You're not going to be seeing the risk for damaging winds or any spin ups. So it's really just this area as we cross over into Georgia that we're going to continue watching. But this is really going along with what we've been kind of forecasting, where there was likely going to be a little bit more energy associated with some of these storms as they continue to make their way towards Houston County, farther to areas southeast. And so it's kind of coming into play here, likely tapping into a little bit more of those upper level winds, allowing for wind shear to pick up too. And I'm going to be watching this too, just north of Gordon. Maybe in that last scan, this rotation is trying to come back a little bit towards Highway 363 in Georgia. Right there, we'll be watching that too. But yeah, seeing this come into play, kind of agreeing with what we've been forecasting over the past few days is very interesting. But yeah, Zach, if you're ready, I'll toss things back to you. See if you also notice anything from what I'm seeing as well. Yeah,
I've seen a lot of comments on Facebook asking about specific locations. So want to quickly run through that right now. Leading edge of the line of storms, now starting to move through Blakely, the eastern portions of Early County, southeastern portions of Houston County, and now moving into the central portions of Jackson County. So if you live anywhere in Gordon, in Blakely, down into Steam Mill, Donaldsonville, Mariana, and then Malone, anybody over in that far southeast corner of Houston County, that's where we're still concerned with the potential for some damaging winds and some isolated tornadoes. Literally anywhere back off toward the west. You still got some rain, there'll still be some thunder and lightning, there'll still be some gusty winds, but your severe weather threat's over. I'm talking all of Covington, all of Crenshaw, all of Pike, all of Coffee, all of Geneva, all of Dale, most of Henry County. They just canceled that tornado warning, or that tornado warning may have just expired for the southeastern portions of Henry County. Henry County, your severe weather threat is over. Barbour County, your severe weather threat is over. Geneva, Holmes, back toward Walton, Okaloosa, all these locations, your severe weather threat's over. You can go back to bed, you can get ready for work, whatever it may be. You still have we still have tornado warnings in effect, and we still have a low-end threat for a few more isolated tornadoes and damaging winds for places like Blakely, places like Gordon, down into Malone, Mariana, Chattahoochee, Donaldsonville, Steam Mill. While it's out of our region, places like Mayhaw. We may have people that are watching us from Mayhaw, and we may have people that are watching us from Mayhaw or have friends and family that live in Mayhaw, even though that's right outside of our region. This is it. This is the only places that we have left where we still have a lingering threat for an isolated tornado or damaging winds. Everywhere else farther back off toward the west. It doesn't matter. Dothan, Enterprise, Ozark, Abbeville, Eufaula, Louisville, Troy, Andalusia, Blakely, Brantley, Luverne, Brundage, Banks, Geneva, Coffee Springs, Slocum, Hartford, back down into Definiak Springs, Bonifay, Chipley, places like that. Your severe weather threat's over. We're only talking about Jackson, Houston, Early, and Seminole County. These are the only locations that are left where we're still dealing with the threat for an isolated tornado or an isolated pocket of damaging winds. Any other location farther back off toward the west, you're fine. You can go ahead and go back to bed, start getting ready for work, whatever it may be. However, while this line of storms continues to move its way eastward and out of the area, we're still continuing to deal with the threat for some quick spin-up tornadoes like we've already seen. There was one back over toward Webb and Kinsey. There was another one over in the southeastern portions of Henry County over around Hillburg. And then we're still tracking some areas of rotation, one getting very, very close to Malone, one just to the south of Gordon, one to the northeast of Gordon, and one pretty close to Early County, or close to Blakely, over in Early County. No tornado warning for that over around Blakely. But we do have a couple of areas of rotation that are still sticking around out across portions of Early County. One to the south of Blakely, another one up to the northeast of Blakely, and they just issued a tornado warning on that, where that area of rotation has really started to tighten up once again as it crossed over Highway 27. This is just barely, this area of rotation is just off toward the northeast of the Colomoki Mounds State Park. So that's a pretty wide tornado warning, and I'm not surprised that they did something like this. There are 3 different areas of rotation included within this tornado warning in Early County, one northeast of Blakely, one just to the south of Blakely, and one down back into the southwestern portions of Early County. 1, 2, 3 different areas of rotation that have all come together to produce this tornado warning that also extends over into places like Mayhaw. Again, Mayhaw, not in our coverage area, but I'm sure we have people that are keeping an eye on this from Mayhaw. Your main area of concern is that area of rotation that has moved through Columbia and has now moved over into the southwestern portions of Early County. Tornado warning still continues for Houston County. There's a couple different tornado warnings that still continue for Houston County. However, I want to point out Webb, Ashford, you're not technically included within that tornado warning, but I'll mention you anyway. Webb, Ashford, Gordon, Columbia, Pierce, anybody that's still within this tornado warning polygon out across the northern portions of Houston County, that main area of rotation has moved eastward and out of your region. So anybody in Webb, anybody in Ashford, anybody in Gordon, anybody in Columbia, and any other location that's in between those 4 spots, yes, you're still under a tornado warning. However, your tornado threat has come to an end. And then we're still watching some other areas of rotation that are moving over into the southeastern portions of Houston County. You see that's a pretty tight area of rotation there over in the southeastern portions of Houston County to the south of Gordon. There's some other areas of rotation right along the Alabama and the Florida state line and down into the northern portions of Jackson County. Very, very close to Malone. The leading edge of those storms are starting to move through right now. These are all of the areas that we'll continue to watch for as we head through about the next 30 minutes to an hour as this line of storm starts to move out of the region. By the way, it looks like we may rinse our hands of this and be done with this by the time we get News 4 this morning started at 6 o'clock. That would definitely be some good news there. But for right now, we're still dealing with some small areas of rotation along this leading edge of the line of thunderstorms that's still moving through the northern portions of Jackson County, far southeastern portions of Houston County, and now moving over into the eastern and central portions of Early County. So from Blakely down into Gordon and down into Marianna, for any of the locations along and east of there, Donaldsonville, over toward Mayhaw, Steam Mill, Chattahoochee, these are still some of the locations where we still have the potential for a brief spin-up tornado or some isolated pockets of damaging winds. Anywhere farther back off toward the west, you still got some rain coming down. You're likely still seeing some gusty winds, probably a little bit of lightning and thunder as well. It may still be pretty loud, but your severe weather threat is over for Dothan and locations farther back off toward the west. I again want to stress, yes, you're still under a tornado warning across the northern portions of Houston County. Webb, Columbia, Gordon, places like that. You're still under that tornado warning. However, that area of rotation has now moved over into Early County. So all clear, anybody north of Highway 84 in Houston County. Again, that area of rotation has moved eastward and out of that part of Houston County. We're still watching a couple of areas of rotation. One in the southeastern corner of Houston County, just to the south of Gordon. Gordon, I think you're fine. This area of rotation is off toward your south and your southeast, and it will continue to move eastward and out of your area. One area of rotation pretty much right over Malone, another one pretty close to Greenwood, and eventually all this carries over into Steam Mill and Donaldsonville. That's kind of our last couple of locations that are still downstream of where we see these storms coming through, and where we still have some areas of rotation. So let's walk you up and down this small section of the line that's still giving us issues over across the eastern portions of our area. Small area of rotation just to the north of Georgia Highway 62 in the far northern portions of Early County. This eventually carries over into Arlington, which again technically out of our coverage area, but pretty close to the Early County line. There's another smaller area of rotation just along into the northeast of Highway 27. This is pretty much over the central portions of Early County, in between Blakely and Damascus. Not very well defined, but with the kind of situation that we have in place, not totally unheard of that we could see a quick, brief spin-up tornado that carries over to the east of Highway 27 and over toward Georgia Highway 200. Between Highway 27 and over into Damascus, there's still a little bit of an area of rotation that could still have a potential to produce a quick spin-up tornado. They just issued a new tornado warning. Wow, this is starting to turn into a mess with all the different tornado warning polygons that we have in place. They really need to get rid of this one that's out across northern Houston County and over into the eastern or the west central portions of Early County. There's no rotation just about anywhere within that tornado warning polygon, but a new tornado warning has been issued for southeastern portions of Houston County. This carries over into the far southern portions of Early County and now moving over into the northern half of Seminole County. So Donaldsonville, you are now included within this tornado warning. Anybody that is in Donaldsonville needs to go ahead and get in that safe place. Anybody that's over in Mayhaw needs to get into their safe place. Steam Mill as well. Any of those locations, anybody that lives around those locations, you need to get into your safe place. We still have these areas of rotation that could quickly produce a tornado. And we'll continue to see this as it pushes eastward and out of our region. So one area of spin, one area of rotation that we're watching closely that's in the southern portions of Early County, about to move over into Mayhaw. Technically out of our region, but I know there's probably some people that are watching us from Mayhaw or has friends or family that live over in Mayhaw. That is headed your direction. Another area of spin over in the far southeastern portions of Houston County. This is about to cross over into where Early, Seminole, and Houston County all come together to the north of Steam Mill. That's kind of probably our most well-defined area of circulation. No indications that we have a tornado on the ground, although I am seeing a little bit of a lowering right there. That's something that we'll have to keep an eye on. That could wind up briefly producing a tornado. Man, there's just so many tornado warning polygons on the ground. I again want to stress there's a tornado warning that's still in effect up here across the northern and northeastern portions of Houston County. That includes Webb, close to Ashford, Gordon, Columbia. You guys are all good. This leading edge of the line of storms has already pushed through your area. Your severe weather threat has come to an end. I'm not really all that sure why that warning is still in effect. Also back toward Cottonwood and Malone, you're still under that tornado warning. However, that area of rotation has moved eastward and out of your area. This is now mostly an issue for the far northeastern portions of Jackson County, now starting to move over into the northern half of Seminole County, and now out across the eastern and southern portions of Early County. Anywhere farther back off toward the west, you have tornado warning still in effect, but your severe weather threat is over for the day. Let's go ahead and dive back in here. One area of rotation now moving just to the north of Arlington and out of our region. The rain, the wind starting to pick up in Damascus. There is an area of rotation just to your southwest, about to move right along Georgia Highway, I believe that's Georgia Highway 45. You see that area of rotation that's in place, about to move over that part of Early County. Heads up, Damascus, you are under a tornado warning. Get to that tornado safe place. Area of rotation just barely off toward your south and your west. And then we're just dealing with other smaller areas of rotation that are now moving out of Houston County and moving over into the far southern portions of Early County. Again, heads up Mayhaw, area of rotation crossing over Highway 39 right now over in the southeastern corner of Early County. Jakin, you're looking pretty good right now, and my apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but over into the far southern portions of Early County, there's a small area of rotation back toward your west that could briefly produce a tornado, and there's a couple of other smaller areas of rotation that have tornado warnings in effect for them. Far southeastern corner of Houston County. Houston County, you're almost entirely out of this. We're talking about the final just handful of miles over in the southeastern portions of Houston County, where we still have that tornado warning in effect and still a little bit of rotation there. Now moving out of Malone and into that far northeastern corner of Jackson County, that's where we still have that tornado warning in effect. Bascom, you're included within the tornado warning. Area of rotation is off toward your north and your east. Hornsville, Steam Mill, and then continuing up toward Donsonville. Tornado warnings in effect, and I want you to be within your tornado safe place. We just have these small areas of rotation that could very, very quickly lead to a tornado that could very, very briefly drop down, produce damage, and lift. And just a hodgepodge, I should say, of tornado warnings still in effect for Houston, Jackson, Seminole, and Early counties. However, our primary areas of concern are now starting to move over into eastern Early, southern portions of Early, northern portions of Seminole, and far northeastern portions of Jackson County. We're just about all clear all across Houston County as we start to get close to that 5 o'clock hour. It's 4:57 on this Thursday morning, what's been a pretty busy morning with several small areas of rotation that have managed to produce a few brief tornadoes. One was back up around the Kinsey and the Webb region. Another one moved through the far southeastern portions of Henry County. So far, those are the only confirmed tornadoes that we know about. I do want to mention something else right quick. I want to pull this up. If I can find it right quick, the watches, warnings, and advisories, because we're starting to remove some counties from this. That'll say red flag warning, but there's no red flag warning in effect. We may have to do that a little bit later, but we are starting to drop some counties from the tornado watch. I can tell you, Okaloosa, Crenshaw, Covington, Pike, and Barbour County, you are no longer included within the tornado warning, and it likely won't be long before we see Walton, Holmes, Geneva, Coffee, Dale, and Henry counties dropped from that tornado watch. However, where we still have this cluster of tornado warnings in effect, that's pretty much where our threat for severe weather continues for about the next 30 minutes or so. Until around 5:30, it looks like that's when we'll finally get this line of thunderstorms out of our area, and we're just seeing all along this leading edge of showers and thunderstorms. That's where we're seeing some of these small areas of rotation that have occasionally produced brief tornadoes and done a little bit of damage. We've already seen that out across the northern portions of Houston County and the southeastern portions of Henry County. Mayhaw, that rain's starting to pick up pretty heavily now. We will switch this back over to our velocity to show you rotation and area of rotation pretty much right over Mayhaw. I don't think it's tight enough to where we're necessarily seeing a tornado on the ground. We'll pull up the debris tracker right quick. Nothing that jumps out at me that suggests that we have a tornado on the ground, but things are picking up pretty quickly over in Mayhaw. We've been saying technically out of our region, but close enough to us to where we'll give those places a shout out. Farther off toward the north, just to the southwest of Damascus, there's an area of rotation that has moved just to the north of Georgia Highway 200. It will cross over Georgia Highway 45, right around or just to the south of Damascus. Tornado warning in effect once you in that tornado safe place, but again, no indications, at least right now, maybe an indication right there. We'll have to watch that little bit of a lowering in the debris tracker. It kind of matches up a little bit with some of that rotation. And these aren't going to be as well defined as what we will see on some other tornado days. That's why there's a whole lot of maybe. It's not as clear today as what we would normally see on some other tornado days. It's usually a little bit more difficult to spot some of these quick spin-up tornadoes on the debris tracker when you're talking about these quick areas of rotation that show up along the leading edge of those thunderstorms. Ryan, check in and make sure that we're not dealing with a confirmed tornado there. There is a lowering in the correlation coefficient, or debris tracker, but There's a chance that may be just a little bit of noise, or it could be a brief tornado that has touched down just to the east of Georgia Highway 200, in between Old Damascus and Damascus, just off toward the west. There is an area of rotation there. However, I don't know. I hate to say I don't know. I know that's something that a lot of people don't like to hear, but when it's not as well defined as what we may normally see otherwise, there's a chance that may be just noise and something that just so happened to match up with something pretty close to where that area of rotation is. My hunch would say that is not an area of where we're seeing that tornado debris being lofted into the air. We'll continue to move farther off toward the south and the east. Steam Mill, you're now starting to get the leading edge of that line of storms into your area. You see that area of rotation just to the west of Steam Mill. There's another little area of rotation that we'll have to watch out across the northern portions of Seminole County, about to move over into Donaldsonville. Again, no indications that we have a tornado on the ground. These are all radar indicated rotations, but it is in an environment where we could very, very quickly see some tornadoes quickly spin up. Another update as far as the tornado watch goes, I just mentioned some of this earlier. Walton, Holmes, Geneva, Coffee, Dale, Barbour County, you have all been dropped from the tornado watch. We still have a tornado watch in effect for Henry, Early, Clay, Seminole, Houston, and Jackson County. So 6 counties left where we still have that tornado watch in effect. The leading line of storms has now moved completely out of Houston County, moved completely out of Henry County. We're just about done with it, especially over the southern portions of Early County. Anybody that lives over here in the far eastern portions of Early County, out around Damascus, that severe weather threat continues, and we're also watching where that severe weather threat continues for the northern portions of Seminole, really much of Seminole County, and over into the northeastern portions of Jackson County, especially along and north of Interstate 10. That's pretty much where our last kind of few locations are still dealing with some of these areas of rotation and the potential for us to see some quick spin-up tornadoes. Finally got those warnings to expire back out over portions of Houston County. There is a tornado warning that's still in effect across this far southeastern portion of Houston County, but the leading edge of that line of storms and any potential area of rotation has now moved out of Houston County. So anywhere out across Houston County, Dothan, Cottonwood, Gordon, Columbia, Webb, Kinsey, Ashford, no matter where it is, anywhere across Houston County, your severe weather threat is over. This is now moving over into Early and Seminole County. It's pretty much now Early, Seminole, and Jackson County. Those are the only 3 locations where we're still dealing with the potential for some isolated pockets of damaging winds or a quick spin-up tornado. We're also continuing to watch that area of rotation. Now just to the east of Mayhaw, that will move over toward Colquitt over the next little bit, and then out across the northern portions of Seminole County, about to move into Donaldsonville. I don't believe it's raining very hard just yet in Donaldsonville, but give it about another 3 to 5 minutes, and you'll start to see that heavy rain coming down, some gusty winds, probably a good amount of thunder and lightning as well. A tornado warning is in effect. Still want you hanging out around that tornado safe place, but so far, not seeing anything that jumps out at us that we may have a tornado on the ground, which is definitely some good news there. We did have a couple of tornadoes on the ground, one in the northern portions of Houston County out around Webb and Kinsey. There was another one on the southeast corner of Henry County back out toward, I think that was Haleburg, over in the southeastern portions of Henry County, where we also had that tornado on the ground. Still a couple of tornado warnings still in effect for the eastern portions of Early County and then down into the northern portions of Seminole County. There are a few embedded pockets of rotation, similar to what we saw northward across the region when the line moved through that part of the area earlier in the morning. Every now and again, it spins up a couple of tornado warnings, a couple brief tornadoes, and we'll continue to watch for that potential as it continues to move through the final little bit of our region. It looks like by around 5:30 or so, we should be able to wash our hands of this, be able to go fully back into live programming, and we'll get off the stream and all that stuff, and we'll get ready for News 4 this morning coming up at 6 o'clock. However, while there's still some areas of rotation, while there's still some tornado warnings in effect for the eastern portions of our region, we'll continue to keep an eye on these. One small area of rotation right along Georgia Highway 216 over in the far, far northeastern portions of Early County. Another generally broad area of rotation, moving over Georgia Highway 45 and Georgia Highway 200 to the south of Damascus. Area of rotation, nothing that jumps out at me that suggests that we have a tornado on the ground. Then continuing farther back down the line, in between Mayhaw and Colquitt, there's an area of rotation that'll need to be watched. That's now starting to jump over into the, I believe that's the Albany market there.
Yeah.
And then now into the northern portions of Seminole County, a couple of areas of rotation. One just to the southwest of Donaldsonville, another one to the south of Steam Mill. Areas of rotation, but again, nothing that's jumping out at us that would suggest that we have tornadoes on the ground. Ryan, haven't tossed things over to you in a while.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of the things you're keeping an eye on.
Yeah, when you were pointing out that rotation towards Damascus, I've been keeping an eye on that on my phone too. And from what you were saying, we were sort of seeing a drop in the debris tracker there, but I'm kind of agreeing with you. I don't think we really saw much that came out of that. But yeah, these areas of rotation, we just got another update with the National Weather Service. They're continuing to continue this warning that we're still watching towards Steam Mill and making its way towards Bainbridge. So we're going to continue watching that. But biggest thing is they have cut off all of our Alabama, and it seems they even, they cut off the warning from Jackson County, Florida. So it looks like in terms of current storm warnings or tornado warnings, our Alabama counties and Florida counties have been cut out from that, and we're still seeing that line has really made its way out of Houston County as well, and starting to make its way out of Early County. So areas behind that, especially in Houston County, if you're trying to go back to bed for another hour or two, you can go ahead and do that right now because we are getting out of that severe threat. But really the biggest thing is over the past couple of scans, it looks like these areas of rotation, I mean, it's only just over like one scan over, but towards Mayhaw, this was still holding on to a pretty good velocity couplet, maybe in the next scan towards Colquitt breaking up, but still holding on to that structure. So I would say definitely still needs to be watched out for. And even with a little bit of a curve here just south of Steam Mill, along with that line, you can kind of even see that in the radar too. It's not terribly connected, but whenever you can get little notches like this, that little curve, you can see maybe some rotation in pockets with some of these storms. But yeah, it's really going to come down to really just over the next, at the very most 30 minutes as this continues to make its way out of our area. I did want to point out, I'm going to zoom out to kind of do a reset. Let's just go ahead and take a look at the regional radar, see how this line has progressed throughout our area. Fast moving as this has made its way through. We can still see many tornado watches that are still in effect, really go from Houston County onward. But again, Houston County and Henry County are out of the severe threat as this line continues to make its way through. And just behind that, here comes these cooler temperatures. So as you are making your way out into this morning, you are definitely going to notice a change in the temperature. And that's exactly what we're going to see toward the weekend and an even colder dip for next week. But yeah, I think it's really just going to come down to these last minutes as we continue to watch the final moments of this line, just watching out for those little notches. And Zach, I'll continue watching to see if we can get any kind of drops in the debris tracker, but luckily still haven't seen anything since we were tracking those cells in Houston County.
Yeah, things starting to wind down just a little bit. There are a few areas of rotation that we're still keeping an eye on here for about the last 15 or 30 minutes until we can get these storms completely out of Seminole and Jackson County. One area of rotation I'm keeping my eye on the closest out across the west central portions of Seminole County. This just crossed over out of Jackson County and over into Seminole County. Tornado warning continues for places like Steam Mill and Donaldsonville. And as this leading edge of the line of storms moves through your area, it's already happened over in Steam Mill. Looks like it's happening right now over in Donaldsonville. This will be where we have our greatest short-term threat for a quick, brief spin-up tornado. I think that threat is currently maximized over the west central portions of Seminole County. So up around Steam Mill, up around Donaldsonville, that leading edge of the line of storms just starting to move through your area. You're likely seeing some heavy rain, some gusty winds, and maybe the small chance that we could see a brief spin-up tornado, but I think that threat is again maximized to the south of Donaldsonville and to the southeast of Steam Mill. One little area of rotation that's dragging right along the far southern portions of the tornado warning polygon. Early County, you're just about out of this. Blakely, you're definitely out of this. This line of storms has already moved through Blakely. Blakely, in fact, you're no longer included in that tornado warning. One area of rotation has now moved well out of the eastern portions of Early County. The last one is right on that bottom southeast corner of this extension of eastern portions of Early County to the southeast of Damascus. That will continue to carry eastward and out of our region. Things starting to wind down pretty much all across Early County. The southern portions of Early County, the leading edge of that line of storms is now moved out of your region. So we're about to get that area of rotation out of the eastern portions of Early County. Once that happens, I'm pretty comfortable with giving the all clear for Early County and even the next county over, including Mayhaw and over toward Colquitt. Things starting to wind down there. We're now pretty much just looking at portions of Jackson County and portions of Seminole County. This is kind of the last two areas where we're keeping an eye on some small areas of rotation that could briefly lead to a brief spin-up tornado, as we have seen out across portions of Houston and Henry County earlier in the morning. Then we saw a few more of these areas of rotation pretty quickly spin up out across portions of Pike and Barbour County earlier in the morning. We're now starting to see some of these happen and across the eastern portions of the region. Again, Jackson County, Seminole County. That's pretty much all that's left for us around the region. I still think by around 5:30, we will be done with our severe weather threat pretty much across our entire region once we get this leading edge of these thunderstorms over into the far eastern portions of Seminole County and down into Jackson County. That's when we'll be able to be done with this. We'll start getting ready for News 4 this morning. That is coming up at 6 o'clock. We will fortunately not be dealing with any severe weather once we start that, which is definitely some good news, but still continuing to track the leading edge of this line of thunderstorms, now moving through the eastern portions of Jackson County and the central portions of Seminole County. Those are the only two places where we're still watching for any sort of potential for a quick spin-up tornado. The leading edge of that line has now moved just about entirely through Early County, especially anybody in Blakely. Blakely, you're good. We've gotten the rain that's moved through your area. You've gotten the gusty winds through the region. That has now moved all well off toward your east. You're done with your severe weather threat in Blakely. A little bit of a lingering threat for maybe a quick brief spin-up tornado over the far eastern portions of Early County. That's it. This moves east of Early County and out of our area over the next several minutes. Still watching that tornado warning that's in effect for the northern portions of Seminole County. There are some small, weak areas of rotation that are showing up on velocity 1 here. That's Georgia Highway 39 to the south of Donaldsonville. Maybe another little area of rotation right along Highway 84, now moving southeast out of Donaldsonville. A couple of areas that we're watching, nothing that jumps out at us that suggests that we have a tornado on the ground. Steam Mill, I think you're good to come out of your tornado safe place. Donaldsonville, give it about another 5 minutes. Let the leading edge of that line of storms push it a little bit farther off toward the east. Again, about 5 minutes or so, and I think you're good to go in Donaldsonville. And then we just kind of babysit this as it continues to move through the eastern portions of Seminole County. I believe that's a look at this from the Tallahassee radar. We've moved this far enough east to where we're now starting to get a view from the Tallahassee radar, and it's really kind of a lot of the same for us. Just a couple of areas of rotation that are moving through the central portions of Seminole County right now. Donaldsonville, things should start to wind down over the next several minutes. Not overly concerned about any sort of a threat of a tornado in Donaldsonville or in Steam Mill. This continues to move eastward and out of your region. Ryan, I noticed you're back over at the monitor looking at power outages. Give us an update on what we're seeing as far as power outages go. I have seen several reports in our Facebook comments that have mentioned either reports of some limbs down and some power outages as well. Give us a quick run through of that.
Yeah, with how defined this line of showers and thunderstorms has been as it's passed through, it's no surprise that some of those gusty winds have been able to knock down limbs and even cause power issues. And yeah, as we progress to track those cells through Houston County, I started to see a lot more power outages rolling in for parts of Houston County and even into Henry County. So let's take a look at some of those power outages too. Out of many customers tracked, over 32,000, we're seeing keeping over 1,400 customers without power in Houston County. So we are seeing power outages for that. Again, this is using poweroutage.com, a really great resource. Let's go on over to Henry County, where we weren't seeing power outages just yet. That line was approaching. Out of more than 12,000 customers tracked, just over 700 customers. And so we did see a little bit more of those power outages really spreading. Again, more of that share really focused on Barbour County, where we had that earliest activity, even some more of those notches, creating some really good spins, even some really good gusty winds as well. But so far, in terms of radar confirmed tornadoes that we've seen so far this morning, it really has been localized to Houston County. But as the sun rises, we're going to see more of what our roads look like, what trees look like as we get into the morning. Wiregrass Electric Cooperative, seeing that map throughout our area. This is the outage map that they provide. Much more in terms of those outages as we spread farther into parts of Geneva County, or I should say eastern Geneva County into Houston County. Hundreds without power, especially for areas towards, I'm zoomed out. Let's go over towards Highway 123, kind of right along West Main, just south of that area. And then once we got into where we saw more of these cells, we see pretty good pockets of people without power, especially right along Cottonwood Road right here, over 200. Again, that icon where you see that yellow means that crews are responding to those power outages as of right now, according to this website. And yes, some of those power outages continue to make their way farther to the southeast, where we saw more of those cells continuing to dive farther southeast as well. Going on to Alabama Power, we saw a few more of those numbers increase down from Barbour County into parts of Houston County as well. So Alabama Power customers, you're seeing that those outages are taking place. And we saw a little bit of an uptick for Dothan Utilities, those web outages just inside the circle, more just right under 60 customers without power and just right along the coverage area. And so many of those power outages have been spreading farther to the east as we continue with this line, but it is in the final moments. And again, as the weather will start to really become or be really calm behind this line, things turn cooler, we'll likely see many electric crews out there trying to get this power up before we get too far into the morning. So if that's going to impact a lot of your day, it probably won't as much. But that is just a final synopsis of where we see power outages right now. Zach, I'll toss it back to you. Are we seeing the final moments of that line making its way out of Seminole County now? Yeah,
we're finally starting to get this over into the far northeastern portions of Seminole County. Donaldsonville over towards Steam Mill, you're still under this tornado warning. One, there's not really an area of rotation that jumps out at me that suggests that we're right on the edge of getting a tornado on the ground. It's definitely not happening over towards Steam Mill and Donaldsonville. So all clear for anybody that's still watching us over in Steam Mill and Donaldsonville. The leading edge of that line of storms has now moved eastward and out of your area. Still watching for the small threat of a quick, brief spin-up tornado over the far eastern portions of Seminole County, kind of around the Brinson area. That's where we're still watching. This is pretty much it. We have narrowed this down all the way over into the far northeastern portions of Seminole County as the only areas left where we're seeing that that small chance for a brief spin-up tornado continue. Elsewhere around the region, we're still watching the far southeastern portions of Jackson County as well, down around Chattahoochee, out around Lake Seminole. Those are some of those locations where we're still seeing the leading edge of that line of storms move through. No tornado warnings in effect for the southern portions of Seminole County and over into the eastern portions of Jackson County. The one tornado warning that we have in effect is still there for the eastern portions of Seminole County. The place where I'm the most concerned for a potential tornado would be along the southern edge of this tornado warning polygon, where some of those greens, some of those reds are coming a little bit closer together and producing maybe a little bit of an area of broad rotation. Northward from there, back up into Iron City, and then eventually over into Brinson, right along that line where those greens and those reds come together. Pretty good chance you may see some pretty strong winds blow through as that part moves through, but just not really seeing a whole lot that really jumps out at me that suggests that we have much of a threat of a tornado. And then heads up anybody watching us over in Bainbridge as this continues to move eastward and into Bainbridge. We'll have to watch for a low-end threat for a quick spin-up tornado or two. Elsewhere around the region, literally anywhere else around the region, Yes, there is still some rain coming down. Yes, there's probably still some gusty winds. Yes, there's probably still some lightning and thunder coming down. There's no severe weather threat with any of this. This is just all a steady rain that usually happens on the backside of these big lines of showers and thunderstorms. You get a little bit of a break back behind the leading edge of that line of storms where you get the heaviest rain, the strongest winds, and all that stuff. And then you just have this area, this shield of more of a steadier rainfall, may come with a quick rumble of thunder, maybe some breezy conditions, but that's about it. The severe weather threat is over anywhere that's farther back off toward the west, the western, the central portions of our region. The only two counties where there's still any sort of threat for severe weather, Jackson and Seminole. Anywhere else around the region, your severe weather threat is over. I know for many of you, it's probably, we've made it far enough into the morning where you can't really go back to sleep. It's time to get ready to go to work and school, but your severe weather threat is over. You can get ready to go to work, go to school, whatever it may be, without the additional threat for any sort of severe weather. Anybody that's over across the far eastern portions of Jackson County or the eastern portions of Seminole County. This does not include Marianna. This does not include Steam Mill. This does not include Donaldsonville. Those are the only locations left where we're still dealing with some sort of potential for an isolated pocket of damaging winds or an isolated tornado. The leading edge of that line of storms is now starting to get very, very close to the Seminole County line. We'll continue to babysit this for a little while longer as it still moves through the far southern portions of Seminole County into the far eastern portions of Jackson County. I think by 5:30, it's 5:22 right now on this Thursday morning. I think by 5:30 we should be able to wind this coverage down unless we get another tornado warning that gets issued for portions of Jackson and Seminole County. For now, I kind of think that threat is on the lower end of the scale. As long as we don't get another tornado warning issued, I think we can probably end coverage at 5:30. That'll give me about 30 minutes to get at least a little bit of a forecast put together for News 4 this morning. But just to give you an overall synopsis, some cooler air moving in throughout the day today. That continues into Friday. The weekend will be a little bit warmer once again, and we're tracking another round of rain. For now, I don't think severe weather threat looks very high. That looks primarily like mostly a rain threat for us, at least it did yesterday, and I don't imagine we would see some pretty big changes to that in a short period of time. Maybe a little bit of rain early Monday morning, and then things turning much, much cooler as we head into early next week. So kind of a synopsis of what's on the way for us as we get into News 4 this morning. But for about the last 7 minutes or so until 5:30, we'll continue to keep an eye on these storms as they continue to move through the far eastern portions of Jackson and Seminole County. And by 5:30, these storms will be right along the eastern edges of both of those counties, and we'll be able to wind this severe weather coverage down, and we can get back to regular programming, and people can go back to getting ready to work, school, whatever may be on the way for you as we head through the rest of our Thursday. Still watching a couple small areas of rotation, one just to the west of Brinson. You notice where we see some of those brighter shades of blue, brighter shades of green. That's where we're seeing some of those strong winds moving toward the radar. And some areas farther off toward the east where you've got winds blowing away from the radar. Just a small pocket of a little bit of rotation. There is still a tornado warning in effect, so anybody that's living in Brinson, you've got family in Brinson, whatever the case may be, you're still under a tornado warning. I still want you at least close to that tornado safe spot as this leading edge of thunderstorms is just now moving through your area. Give this about 5 minutes or so, and this crosses over the Seminole County line and continues out across the south central portions of Georgia. Again, tornado warning still in effect for that area, and that's what we'll continue to watch as we head through the next handful of minutes. Aside from that, things are starting to wind down for us, and again, I think by 5:30, we should be pretty close to done. We'll switch this back over to regular coverage. A tornado warning, again, does still continue for the far southeastern portions of Early County and the northern half of Seminole County. What I can tell you is, even though this warning polygon has not been trimmed very much, anybody in Early County, your severe weather threat is over. Yes, a tornado warning continues for the far southeastern portion of the county, but your severe weather threat is over. Anybody in Steam Mill, anybody in Donaldsonville, anybody across the western and central portions of Seminole County, you're still under a tornado warning, but the greater threat for any sort of a spin-up tornado is now east of your region. So all clear in Donaldsonville, all clear in Steam Mill, also all clear across much of Jackson County as well. We're seeing things start to wind down here. the leading edge of of those showers and storms now moving through Sneads. This will continue along Highway 90 out across Lake Seminole and into Chattahoochee. No tornado warnings in effect for this, but we do still have severe thunderstorm warnings in effect. There will likely be some gusty winds that move through as this continues to now enter Sneads and move into Chattahoochee. Some gusty winds, some lightning, some thunder, and some heavy rain, but that's pretty much going to be the extent of it as that leading edge of the line moves through your area. And then we will start to track this as it continues to carry over toward the east and out of Seminole County. This is the Seminole County line right here, and you see those darker shades of red are right over that Seminole County line. So that'll continue to move eastward. It moves out of Seminole County over the next handful of moments, seeing a little bit of a notch here in the far southern portions of Seminole County. We'll pull up velocity right quick. Yeah, maybe a little bit of rotation there. It's a little bit of broad rotation, but it's in an environment where we've already seen small areas of rotation produce these quick areas of tornadoes. So no tornado warning in effect for the far southern portions of Seminole County, but there is just a little bit of rotation here just to the southwest of Reynoldsville. That is Georgia Highway 253 is this black line that runs just to the north of where this area of very, very broad rotation is. And that's pretty much all that we have left to deal with. It looks like now that leading edge, if we're going to see a tornado along this leading edge of this line of storms, it's now eastward and out of Seminole County. That's now a problem for any of those markets farther off toward our east. And we're pretty much done here, but again, we'll continue to keep this until 5:30. Then at 5:30, we'll get off the air and we'll start getting ready for News 4 this morning. Haven't done this in a while, so I want to give you a quick view of what's going on elsewhere around the region. Your leading edge of the strongest thunderstorms are now moving out of our area. Eastern Seminole County, eastern portions of Jackson County down in the Florida Panhandle. This is moving eastward and into the south central portions of Georgia. Rain has briefly come to an end for places like Dothan, Abbeville, Blakely, Gordon, Columbia, Cottonwood, places like that. Rain has briefly come to an end. However, there's another batch of rain that's farther back off toward our west that will move eastward and back into Dothan. All this is steady rain, may get a little bit breezy. You may still see a quick flash of lightning, a quick rumble of thunder, but all this is rain. Your severe weather threat is over, and we're just about ready to completely say all clear for all around the Wiregrass. And then we'll head through the rest of our Thursday morning and again get underway with News 4 this morning. Ryan, some quick thoughts for you before we wrap up.
Yeah. Just before we wrap up here too, wanted to kind of give a last synopsis. I'll go ahead to the wide view of the radar here. It's definitely been a morning where we've seen heavier wind gusts in pockets as well as many velocity couplets trying to spin up. And again, we had a couple of radar confirmed tornadoes. And actually that's why I wanted to just take a second to outline a few of the damage reports and also wind reports that have come through. The latest one was called into, I believe what I saw was the SPC, the Storm Prediction Center. Zach, do you know if they actually, do they get reports and then they'll actually issue them if they're called
It's usually the National Weather Service office.
Right, okay, that's what I thought when I saw it. So anyway, but they were reporting that there was a power line and tree down really towards the Grimes community. Looking at the address, it seems to be close to the Grimes Community Center just north of Montgomery Highway in Dothan. So that's, or really, really close to the Dothan Regional Airport. That might be a better indication of where that is. So yeah, there was a report around there. And then towards Dale County, really towards 4:05 a.m., report of a large tree down towards Alabama 123 towards Newton. And so these are just a couple of the reports that trees and power lines have been down. Of course, we just checked in on many of the power outages throughout our area too. So yeah, just a few of these things to let you know that these storms were impactful this morning.
Yeah, a few other ones that I'm looking at as well. Law enforcement reporting power lines and trees down over near Grimes over in Houston County. There's a report of trees and power lines down blocking County Road 57, 1 mile east-northeast of Ozark in Dale County. Tree and power lines down near Cottonwood Road, that's 2 miles south-southeast of Wilson Mill in Houston County, Alabama. And then in Barbour County, let's see if I can get that pulled up. Several reports. Highway 239 near the county jail. There's trees and power lines down. County Road 44. Barber Creek Bridge on Highway 431 in Eufaula completely blocked due to power lines down. Sid Bush Road and Bowden Road, 5 Mile Road. Highway 51 between Louisville and Clayton. County Road 11 or some other places where we have seen some of those tree and power line damage reports coming in, and surely there will be more coming in as we head throughout the morning. That tornado warning has likely been allowed to expire for the northern portions of Seminole County. It's now 5:31 on this Thursday morning. We're going to wind down coverage. All of these storms now moving eastward and completely out of our region. I'm comfortable in giving the all clear all across the Wiregrass. As far as our severe weather threat goes, we will continue to keep an eye on any additional storm reports as they come in. But for right now, I think we're good to wind down live coverage, send you back to regular programming, and then we'll start up with News 4 this morning coming up at 6 o'clock. See you then. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great Thursday morning.
You've been watching a News 4 First Alert Severe Weather Update. For more weather updates, download the free WTVY First Alert Weather app.